We are live from Nubian Human.
Hey, am I in the other shot?
Yes, you were in the shot, bro.
I gotta make sure.
Come on, man.
I don't know.
You messing up my intro. We are live from Nubian Human in the Anacostia Arts Center in historic Anacostia, Southeast Washington, D.C. And this is the Neighborish livecast. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Super Dave, a.k.a. Mr. Incredible. And with me, as always, is one of the dopest individuals in the world. I'm going to say in the world. I'm going to give you the world.
Thanks, man. That's a big place.
He is DC's native son, the SC3 representative, and a gentleman that I am proud to call my friend and my brother.
Hey.
Jason.
Hey, we in the building.
What's up, man?
All is well, brother.
That's good. That's good, man. Mm-hmm. You had a nice little shindig the other night, man.
Yeah, thank
nice
you.
Little get together. I had fun, man.
I did too. You did an excellent job.
Oh, thanks.
Dave did his stand-up comedy debut.
I did.
And was successful.
It was pretty. I got some laughs.
It was pretty good, man. So Eddie B, when you tune in, man, we gotta get a camp going. We gotta get a camp going for Dave.
Okay.
Get him ready for the bigger stages. He did well, man.
All right, well, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was great, man. Shout out to Cecily.
Yeah, she was dope.
What's her last name?
Well, her last name is Bumbray, but I think she goes by Cecily
Alexa. That's what I mean. Yeah, she did her thing. She was the feature, and John Johnson, and all that. Everybody else who came out and did their thing, man. Yeah. It was beautiful. I was blown away, man. That's pretty dope. You know, like I said, that was my first one. And you do your thing, man.
Thank you,
put
brother.
together some nice stuff.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
So we have an amazing show for you today. Yeah. We got a great guest coming in, and we're gonna talk to him about a lot of stuff. I ain't gonna hype it up too much till he steps in the building. But before that, it's a few things going on in the city, in the world.
Yeah. What's going on,
in the country, in the world that we need to talk about tonight.
Tell me some stuff that's happening.
Let's talk.
Let's talk.
Now, I'm going to start with, have you seen, it's all over social media, have you seen Oprah bust her ass?
Yeah,
and, you know, so Oprah Winfrey, of course, was doing her stage show, her motivational tour, and she failed. It was interesting to me because she was talking about balance, and that's when she failed, and the internet went crazy. A lot of people said stuff like 50 Cent said it was Michael Jackson's ghost that pushed her, and somebody else said it was Kobe.
Kobe crossed her.
He crossed her out. Went down like a ton of bricks. She had a sense of humor about it. But with that being said, you actually put up a post that, and I feel like you caused a couple of little heat, a little bit of heat behind the post about, what's her name, Ava DuVernay?
Well,
I noticed that it was from 2013, though. So that might have been, I'm 22, so that might have been before everybody knew the extent of Harvey's stuff, but still, even from what she should have known. So basically, the post was a quote from her that said something about and I thought it was funny because she was like, "I'm watching Harvey Weinstein stand in for Charlie Rose to interview
Piers Morgan.
Oh, Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Oh, to interview Clinton. Not all three of them, but she was probably talking about Hillary though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was like if she was talking about Bill, and all three of them that's like a
it's
perverted trifecta. You know what I'm saying?
This is about to be good now.
Yeah.
The same question, the topic. Were you asking me something about this?
Yeah, I'm staying on the topic. Well, no, I was just bringing it up to because it was an interesting topic about Oprah falling. And the Ava DuVernay quote that you posted.
Yeah. And
a couple of people had some things to say to you about it.
Not really.
Didn't somebody made faces or something? Oh, somebody said wow or something like that. And was it a negative wow? I didn't know.
Well, I mean, I don't remember, and I took the post down since then. Not that because of that. It's just like whenever I'm posting a lot on Instagram, that's when I'm not smoking weed. So that you can tell my patterns. Like if I post a lot, you're like, this is sobriety posting, just But I mean, I guess what it really is also like a litmus test of where we stand as like a culture, like what people,
right.
You know what I'm saying, like what people are aligned with. And so some people, no matter what Harvey Weinstein did or Oprah did or Gail or Ava, you know what I'm saying, they just feel a certain type of way and they approach their life
right.
a certain way. It's like, oh girl, all that don't matter, like to that particular person.
Right.
But to other people who are passionate about like how we are represented and being honest and just and being treated fairly and equally, like those people feel a different way about certain topics. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's necessarily a right or wrong per se, but it's just like I don't really rock with people who contradict themselves, like who claim they want equal rights and blah 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 for everybody, but accept certain people that have certain positions, or like Harvey Weinstein in particular. He has basically all the power in Hollywood, so it's like, yeah, I'm fighting real hard for women's rights or racial rights, but he gave, you know what I'm saying? It's like the but is what it's like, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I can't rock with that, and I won't put no energy into a person or institution that kind of is flip-floppy like that. Go and do the intro, Dave. It's coming in hot.
Either one, well, you can grab that right there.
No, you go over there. Only because
you want fruit 56.
Yeah, because if the other guest comes, it's a woman, and since it's like 3 dudes, I'd rather sit next to the woman.
See how you
no offense to you.
See what he do to the guest.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as you guys may see, speaking of, you said something about smoking. So no, I'm just
sorry. Please excuse my cologne that I.
Oh, what's the joke, Dave? What's the proposed joke about the smell? Have you put it together, or you just formulating it?
Oh no, I was just saying, people. I was still formulating it, but just how people who smoke never feel like they smell like weed. I was asking, do I smell like? And then they spray stuff on and be like, you can't smell it. Yes, you smell like cologne and weed.
Well, I can confirm that I definitely doesn't have any cologne.
Right.
Cover to spray that. I think I'm wearing
that's that organic.
Right.
I think I'm wearing Purple Haze.
Right. Yeah.
Number 5.
Right.
Is it really Purple Haze? Because I was saying when you stepped in the door to ask about going out back, it like hit me. It's like that was loud.
Well, I'll keep it 100. I'm actually a DC medical marijuana patient.
Oh, okay.
So I was one of the early ones many years ago.
That's why you were so confident, like I'm about to go out front.
But even many years before they even made cannabis recreational in DC, I had went through the process, because once I found out many years before the mass public knew, DC for a very long time was always experimenting and testing out the medical marijuana process.
Wes, you always ahead of the game, like almost every way. Like, Dave, you got to do an intro, because he came in hot. We just started talking to the,
Yeah, so we had a bunch of good shows, and this is another one, because our guest today is you don't even need an introduction. Well,
give an introduction, Dave.
All right. He's one half of the Crossroads. Socio-political minded collaboration with Raheem Devon, but his legacy in DMV music and arts is so much deeper than that. He's a published poet, accomplished actor of stage and screen. His Wikipedia discography is 34 projects deep.
Wow.
And somehow he still found the time to come kick it with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Wes Felton is in the building. We're so happy to have you here, man. Welcome to the Neighborish live cast. This is what we do on a regular basis.
What's up? Peace.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here, man. We've been talking about doing this for a while, and in a good way.
Yeah.
I've been busy, and I looked ahead and said, oh, you know what? This will be this window of time when I'm gonna be home again for a few days, and I'd love to, get on there and come, kick off March.
We're gonna get into all the stuff that I talked about, your history, what you're doing now, and the future. But first, there's a few things that we like to talk about that's going on in the city, in the country, and the world.
Talk about it, Dave.
A couple of little topics. We already went through the whole Oprah situation, and Jay had put up a post about something that Ava DuVernay has said. And can you go back through that a little bit, Jay?
I don't quite remember it verbatim, but it was something like when she was watching Harvey Weinstein fill in for Piers Morgan, and Harvey Weinstein was interviewing Clinton. I'm assuming Hillary because it was 2012.
Yeah.
And then she was like, amidst the rumors about Harvey, I'm still a fan. And so it was a picture of her, Oprah, and Gail, at the show taping, watching Harvey Weinstein interview Hillary Clinton.
And that's just so it's interesting that because didn't Pierce Morgan catch some charges too?
Yeah, I mean they're all
the
they all seem to be like
Weinstein
weird,
Clinton.
rapey type, molesty type folks.
That was just
Well, let me tell you guys as an actual spook who sits by the door in the entertainment industry, sometimes and frequently now, more than often. It's no conspiracy,
right,
to the limits and levels of what people will either do or what they will tolerate in the name of fame and money.
right. Agreed.
So when you see certain people that are in certain levels, and then when you see them in a picture together, that's just confirmation. You understand?
Yeah,
now, it's up to us to choose whether we want to continue to put up a filter and say, oh, no, there's no way in the world that Al Sharpton and Rush Limbaugh eat steaks together or used to eat steaks together. Or there's nowhere in the world Jesse Jackson but there's actual documentation and photos of all of these, types of interactions.
Oh, this show's about to be great.
About to be real.
Show's about to be good.
So glad I got the sound working.
So a lot of times, and now when I say that, I'm not blaming those people because life's about choices.
Right.
And we can make choices. We can choose what route we want to take. You know, I've always been one since I was a kid who wanted to control my narrative and control my destiny. I was told, like most people, you grow up in a house and they, grow up in the church and they tell you, God has a destiny for you, and But sometimes you might have a destiny, but fate can say fuck it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, meaning life happens. And I believe that at some point in different people's ages, whether it's from a traumatic moment when they're younger or an impactful, positive moment when they were younger, somewhere midlife or in their teenage areas and then midlife, people eventually decide whether they're going to continue to control their narrative or are they going to consciously make decisions and seek out sources from other places and other people to help expedite what they believe is their destiny. And so often we see it over and over again in the media.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily get them faster to their destiny. It gets them faster to their fate. So it's normal for us now to see a rapper die.
Yeah.
Back in the day, at first we were like, wow, like, dang, somebody killed Biggie and somebody killed Tupac now. Where it's like now, every day, but we as a society refuse to eliminate the continuous narratives that are put through in our media, through our music, through social media that fulfills and feeds that narrative for people to play out. So it's just that's become a norm. So I think what we need to start doing as people who are quote unquote vibrating on higher frequencies,
who understand it. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
We need to vibrate on a higher frequency and acknowledge and realize that just because somebody's richer than you doesn't mean that they vibrating higher than you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It don't mean that they have some kind of greater clarity than you. And especially if you're talking about when it comes to actually the real needs and desires of the people.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of artists, we're the only people in our society and culture who get to, basically, we have dual citizenship everywhere.
Right, right.
We're the only ones that can kick it with kings and queens and presidents and such, and then 2 hours later be rocking a stage in front of people on welfare, the middle class, the less thought of.
And you probably seen, like, at your shows, you probably seen that, like, every facet of humanity, like from the poorest to the richest, you know. And
I mean,
like
but I'd say, but the common denominator is the free will and choice of them to either say, I'm going to have whatever I do provide a service and maybe feed and sustain me, or I'm doing this to feed and sustain me and what I build and what I create. And those who are like-minded around me, I'm going to build that. And I just personally believe that the quote-unquote woke or the quote-unquote, people who vibrate higher, I think it's just time for us to, like, reclaim our narratives.
Right.
The same way people don't want to associate with quote unquote woke people, and they come up with all these hotep, clownish comments and all that stuff.
Yeah, labels.
Okay, they don't want to fuck with us. Let's stop fucking with them so that they can truly identify that it's us that are the trendsetters. Right. It's us that are the risk takers. It's us that taste something before you taste it, and then you glorify it and you claim that it's something great. It's us that who decide to want to mix that Old Bay with that hot sauce and then say, you know what, and then take it to their supervisor and say, hey, look, I did this weekend, and then next thing you know, they done bottled and packaged it.
Yeah, and they
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
let them hate. Let them because but when you vibrating on a higher frequency, and I think that we give too much energy towards Oprah. I loved when nobody was checking for Oprah and they was just letting her exist.
Yeah, right.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
because that meant that you were allowed to love her or you were allowed to hate her. Mm-hmm. But the moment, we hear about her producing some black movie or producing something with a black face.
Right.
That's no different than a white person producing something black.
Yeah.
Or producing something with a black face.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just
and we all of a sudden then forget the last time Oprah showed who she was.
Exactly. But and that's like the nature of man. Like, people are quick to forget the atrocities. I think I heard Chappelle talking about the pimp book. What was it?
Iceberg Slim.
Yeah, the Iceberg Slim book.
Yeah,
where he's like, you fixed her so good that she forgot that you're the one that broke her in the first place.
Right.
And that's like, and like he said, that's America in a nutshell. You know what I'm saying?
But then also now the balance to that is that, one, we still have to remember that these black women at some point, and still continuously, have experienced and continue to experience the same trauma that we as black men and black women in this country must continually figure out how to navigate ourselves around without allowing it to turn us into the Joker.
Right, yeah.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've been learning how to, like, really, literally, something negative comes in, it affects me, it makes me feel a certain way. I've learned how to take it in, okay, observe it, maybe develop an opinion or thought or whatever. If I have an opportunity to retort or have a rebuttal, I'll do that, whatever, and then boom, it's deleted.
Right.
Okay. And move on from it.
That's it.
Okay.
Because what people don't understand is, see, pharmaceutical people, churches, whoever, they want to try to, people who have something to gain by taking your strength away from you, and them taking control of it. They have a tendency to make people, believe, bullshit like everybody with mental illness is born with mental illness. Okay? Mental illness comes from an overexerted amount of anxiety and depression. And when a person is no longer able to handle or balance or compartmentalize those things, the only option is an extreme. Because then the extreme can make you feel that you've gained some control again. And that you're not the cliche superficial, I'm at the will of something else, or there's something overwhelming. But where they really feel that they can stand in things, you know. You guys mentioned, I guess people on social media know Saturday I lost my brother. And, so I've been, dealing with that for the last couple of days. He and I had a very sensitive relationship. He was 12 years older than me. 10 years older than me. My sister's 12 years older than me. So we didn't necessarily grow up together. It was the way that my brother and sister did. But it allowed me to make observations in their journeys as juveniles, into young teens and teenagers and so on. And the one thing I always observed was that my brother and sister didn't have the benefit that I had of our parents not forcing the doctrination of Christianity on me. It was still doctrinated on me. I still had to go to church on the Sundays. But there was never a point that my father or my mother ever made me feel that, it was like mandatory. Forced me. They didn't make they made, but what they did do, and this is how life is really supposed to go down. Here's the parent in me talking now.
Okay.
What they did do, they found the passions of me as an individual, and that's how they chose to find ways to introduce religion to me. So let's say, well, we identify he's confident and he's not nervous in front of people. So let's get him in the youth choir first. Or, he likes to draw, or he likes to, he has this certain kind of a thing. So introduce it to him in this manner,
different ways.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but when I think of my brother, I now in hindsight, wish that he had more people in his life attempting to help combat the depression that he was going through with the loss, with a horrific divorce. That for him, that's a strike once again in the eyes of people in the religious world in his life, telling him, well, you gotta be a this. The only way to be a father is this. The only way to be a husband or a real man is this. Knowing that historically, all of those social constructs and rituals of marriage and all of that, first and foremost, the ones that we practice here, were created for the purpose of control of property. The white men who continued to control and own everything, when they realized that, we forgot one part of this. We don't live forever. So when we don't live no more, what happens to our shit?
Where does it go?
So we have to figure out and set up a form of that. Okay, so let's just be clear of that. Okay, but we still want to perpetuate these false European rituals, which evolved into white supremacy methods of controlling people, and we just want to keep being bad impressions of the ones who oppressed us.
And I don't even know if it's one as much as, let me ask you, it's not one as much as it's so indoctrinated, like it's something that we do because we saw, right, to a certain extent.
It's
those people
most
who
of the
don't
stuff
vibrate
that
on that
people
level.
man, I swear 75% of the people in this world don't even believe what they think their beliefs are.
Right.
They only doing it because they great grandmama told them.
Exactly.
And then they grandmama told them.
Exactly.
And then they mama and they daddy told them.
Those rituals
And they have
passed
nothing
down.
to show for. I'm not saying everybody.
Yeah.
I believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe that prayer without action is blasphemy. I don't believe that you can pray and then not immediately get an action for the thing that you're praying for.
Exactly.
If you're one of those people who pray and say, okay, I'm just going to hang out and wait for the Lord or whoever to bless me or to answer this prayer,
Yeah.
that's blasphemy to me. And I think that I think God or whoever you believe in, I think they laugh at that. I think that's when God gets his humor. That's when he gets to experience comedy.
Right. So
Because it's almost like, what?
You think
you want me to do what? That's when he
Right.
becomes that's when Jesus becomes a Republican. What? I beg your pardon? You want me to turn your water into wine?
And you don't even believe it?
But you
Right.
don't want
Right.
but you don't want to walk to the faucet yourself to pour the water that you want me to turn to wine?
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
we jump ahead. So the anxiety and the stresses and the pressure of as black men, okay, so now you got to navigate, okay, how do I navigate through this world full of traps that were set up completely for me, that was created and structured. We built it, but it was not designed for our benefit and our enjoyment. So how do I navigate that while still not trying to disappoint the Lord? Knowing that, okay, economically, knowing that job-wise, knowing that I will not have the ability and the advantages that white people in our society have, where they do have the opportunity where they could go to a job and it's beneficial, so they're able to take care of their family and happy wife, happy life, and all that bullshit, right? Okay? So then you speed up. You go into the working world, where you're dealing with people who are superiors. You're working for the United States government. My brother started in the United States government for years. He immediately got into that.
Yeah.
You know, a job. Because he wanted to, he constantly wanted to get it right based on all of these sources of definitions of somebody else's narrative. Okay?
What's supposed to be right, like you said.
So you deal with that, right? Then you speed up. And then his father dies. Our father died.
Okay.
So now the one person who can relate, the one who also attempted to navigate and balance this challenge of spirituality and profession and career and family and all of that. Meanwhile, everyone's still around you talking about, oh, just pray it away. Oh, don't worry, the Lord's got you. He ain't gonna give you nothing that you can't handle. The nerve of them. That's when Jesus becomes a Republican one more time. And he says, what? Huh? What you mean?
Yeah.
What you mean you want me to turn that bread into fish? But you don't see your coworker and your fellow church member and your cousin and your uncle spiraling into a world of psychological chaos, turmoil. Oh no, I'm not answering that prayer because you didn't give me the action. So what do? We then try to find vices. We try to. That's when we find out that, oh, okay, you know what? Now I understand sometimes why Jesus turned water into wine. Because sometimes you might need to unwind. Sometimes you might need to. You understand? But you done gone all these years believing the bullshit that if you touch a glass of wine or you sip wine, you're automatically gonna be condemned to hell. You're gonna be believed. That's still that same thing.
Yeah.
So what happens? You become an extremist. At that point, when in the process of humans pushing other humans into mental illness, the results become the extreme. And so for the last year and a half, 2 years, the roles of myself and my brother begin to shift.
Okay.
And I had to become the older brother.
Yeah, yeah. And that happens.
And I had to separate it. And I had to begin to see and say, okay, I'm not going to pacify what needs to be really dealt with and handled.
Yeah. And
so, I began to, try to be my father's voice for him, because I knew that for like the last 13 years he just needed to hear my dad's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you mean by like become the older brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where I had to, many years ago, I had to swallow my pride and my ego that comes with, being the baby. The cliche narrative that the baby is spoiled and the baby this and that.
Yeah.
That's why I hate the fact that niggas is worshiping these rappers called the baby. Grown ass men out here following babies. So I had to swallow my pride and realize that, okay, I now have to be there for my brother in a way that is necessary. So I begin to just constantly try to remind him of things to be proud of, and just remind him that, look, man, our parents were teen parents, man.
Yeah.
My mother was disowned by her mother, who was able to hide behind a veil of religion, while the world worshiped and glorified, thinking that this person was this all godly, all loving, just like when we was in them dungeons and they were right above us in Ghana talking about love everybody and Jesus and all that, except them down there.
Yeah. And America's the same way, but yeah, that's.
And so we have become very bad impersonators, and we do bad impressions of the ones who have oppressed us.
Exactly.
And it's pushed us to my brother, he struggled, and what people don't understand about depression is that it attacks your body.
Yeah, it's definitely physical.
Because what happens is there's a part of you in your mind that gradually says, okay, well, shit, ain't nobody out here fighting for me, so let me just, let's just see where this goes.
Yeah.
And so it was unexpected.
I understood.
We tried to, we in the more recent years, he had finally found a wife that he was able to experience love unconditionally.
That's deep. Yeah. Everybody should experience that, right?
She took his roses and his shit.
Right.
But she understood that fertilizer sometimes involves a little shit.
Right, yeah, definitely.
And it produces some of the best natural things that can grow.
100%.
So I'll get off of this, and so we can go back to talking the topics. But for the listeners and viewers, if there's anything I can say is, please stop settling for things that have been doctrinated and gently forced upon you.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a society right now where our people are constantly in turmoil, killing each other still. Our leaders still sell out. It's not about a revolution. It's not about socialism. It's not about any of that. It's about the reality of, do you want to control your narrative, or are you going to still allow the things that were set up and designed to kill us and genetically put things in us to ultimately wipe us out?
That's the question. Yeah, 100%.
So, you know,
yeah,
God bless my family. My rest in peace to my brother. You know, it's still weird to me to say that.
Yeah.
But I will say, I'm so glad that, you know, one thing about people, what people don't understand sometimes too, when people are battling with, you know, like substance abuse, alcohol, more specifically alcoholism. First of all, we need to. First of all, that's another thing. Our black community needs to stop acting like there's certain things that don't exist within our homes.
Oh man, yeah, that whole keep it quiet and, you know, all that.
You know, I that was something for my brother. You know, I remember when I used to DJ, and he would pop in sometimes and check me out, and then I would notice and observe. I was like, man, I say, man, you know, slow down, bro. You drinking a lot, man. You know, it's cool. Because sometimes also there's a false narrative that the church teaches people, is that that entertainers and artists, we're all devil worshipers, and all we do is drink.
That whole thing.
All we do is drink, and we worldly and all that.
Yeah.
But really what they don't realize and understand and identify, that we come from the same homes that they come from.
Yeah.
We come from the same moral compasses as they do. So if they really believe in that faith thing.
Yeah.
And what does it say? It says, parents, teach your children, raise them how to live.
Right.
So that when they get older, they won't depart from those ways. It doesn't say control your child.
Right.
It doesn't say your child's only supposed to be this, that. It says, okay, you need to trust in me. See, that's when Jesus is a Republican. I'm trying to tell you. But people don't understand, and I'm not a Republican, but I'm trying to just show the hypocrisy that we all are living in. We live in selective morality right now.
Yeah.
That's all and we are so comfortable and cozy in it until somebody dies. I see people celebrating, they post these memorials for these celebrities and these people they don't know. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever wishes Sandra Bland a happy birthday.
Mm. I do.
I do too.
Yeah.
No
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just a personal. You know how some people say, I'm going to try not to litter no more, or I'm going to, you know, try to only eat vegetables or plant-based things or whatever. That's one of my dedications that I've made for the rest of my life, is that I'm going to always wish Sandra Bland a happy birthday.
Definitely.
Because it's important that we stop acting like those victims can't or couldn't be one of our own family members or one of our best friends. So people, please, you know, Maxine Waters tried to tell it to y'all. Mm-hmm. When she said, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm telling you, reclaim your narrative. Yeah. Reclaim your destiny. Reclaim the control of your destiny. Because if you let it, another person and some other outsource or some ritual continue to control it, your fate is going to fall in the hands of someone else.
Exactly.
Bars.
So that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Nah, and it's a reason, like, you know, I ain't want to stop you at all, because that mourning process, it elicits a purity that you can't, you know, and a truth, first of all, within yourself, but one that
Wes is like this anyway.
And following them and following the music, I already know, but just to let it pour out for a little while and just soak up that honesty and that energy.
And that's for the people who don't make it to church.
Amen.
That was a sermon. That was the sermon.
Yeah,
that's what was blessed and laid on my heart, because, you know, I don't, you know, it's like I don't even know how I'm gonna go to this funeral.
Nah, it's
to and be in that space.
It's the process.
And be amongst the hypocrisy and the, you know, I when I first got back from Ghana, from doing a tour in Ghana, you know, my first thing I did was I sat my mom down, and I very, in a very respectfully and kind way, I sat her down. I said, hey, Mom, moving forward now, there's some things we won't be able to talk about in a certain cadence.
Right.
Because I no longer can view it without feeling cynical. Every time I go to a church now, I hear wailing. I imagine that there's people in the basement underneath me.
Yeah.
When after visiting there and seeing that and learning that, you know, people laugh and people want to have a disconnection to Africa as African Americans, as black people. But they just don't understand that we're not descendants of Africans. We're descendants of the strongest of the strongest of the strongest of the strongest African. Because there was so much that they went through before they even got to the boat.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
We think it started somehow magically on the boat, or maybe then somehow magically in these dungeons. But they would get us from out the hills, and walk us barefooted 500 miles. Okay, in that process, we have to fend off and fight off wildlife. Okay. Some of us were getting bit by snakes. Those that would get bit by snakes, they would then chain them to trees so that way the other wildlife like lions and other things and leopards of that nature or whatever would eat and feed off of them to distract them from the rest of the merchandise that was being moved.
Wow.
By the time they got through this 400-mile walk, they got it down to a system where they would usually, out of 500 of them, they would usually get it to a good 200. That 200, they would then take them into this river where they bathed them in their feet. We saw it. I saw it. We were all there.
This is in Ghana?
Yes.
Okay.
And in this river, you look down, you see pieces and particles of gold. As your feet are in it, your feet move through it like normal sand, but when you go down and if you say, for instance, you were attempting to, you would try to grab a piece of gold out of it, it tightens up and goes hard on you. Walking along that way, there are plants. I heard that maybe in South Carolina and North Carolina, there's these blades of grass that are there in the same trail headed to this river, where there's this, I can't remember the name of the type of grass and blade it is, but it reacts when danger is near. So it's almost like even in that moment, nature was attempting to communicate.
Right.
But also there's a specific reason why they chose that part and that place in that land, okay? So they bathed them, the last bath, in order to then put them in a dungeon where they stood there butt naked, separated from their family members, now in there with different random Africans, maybe some from rival tribes, rival families, in the dark, with no light or ventilation bigger than the size of a size 7 shoebox. Standing there in shit and spoiled and rotten food knee-high. So that meant if you wanted to lay down, you were being submerged in feces and urine and food. They would then be in there for weeks at a time while they were waiting for that other batch of 200 to make it to fulfill the additional 2 to 3 other dungeons. So then they could load the boat. But all while they were there, the whole time, above them in the males dungeon, you had the library where they were introducing the English church, what we know and what we participate in. And right above them, they would have church. And they would tell them as they were in this dungeon in shit, knee high, that heaven was right above them. So they begin to feel a sense of comfort, believing and thinking that, oh, all I got to do is get up there.
Yeah.
So then once all of the dungeons were full and we're ready for that trek, they then walk them up a hill out towards the door of no return, to then discover that they didn't make it to heaven. Sorry, joke's on you, haha. You got to get on a boat still to make it to heaven. You're not in heaven yet. Then they get on this boat, and the boat is not like the Carnival Cruise or the Tom Joyner Fantastic Voyage.
Right.
It's them being stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked upon each other. Some still, had slight wounds that weren't being treated. Germs, diseases, things, conditions that, they'd never been adapt or used to. Then brought to a land, and we further forward and so forth, and know how then they then continued what was introduced to them in dungeons. They then went on to put a face, which was normally a black face, to continue that message of, trust me, just trust me.
It's going to get better, right?
It's going to get better.
You just keep suffering, right? You just keep on suffering.
Just keep praying.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
Another Republican moment. What does it sound like? So we live in this world of hypocrisy, and I'm kind of going on this kind of these rants because again, I think I'm gonna help with I know for sure I'm gonna help with the process of my brothers, what they choose to how to bury him, but I got to get this out before I can walk in that building.
Yeah, and I'm glad you have a place.
Be respectful,
Yeah.
Because
it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing.
When you have your, it took me 2.5 to 3 months to reacclimate myself to America when I came back.
Okay. How long you been back in the States?
Well, from that trip, it was pretty much almost a year to now when we were over there.
Okay.
But I just remember coming back and just looking at everything like, oh my God.
It's so much different when your eyes
like
open
I can't believe what we're doing as survivors of that.
Wow.
And we choose to kill each other. We choose to overconsume, and we validate each other with materialism and things that, and then we expect people to act normal and function in that same environment amongst the people who formerly great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents
put us here, orchestrated the whole situation.
And what do we desire? Still, we will shit on each other. We will lie to each other just so we think that we could get closer to them. So we can touch the hem of their garment instead of wanting to make our own.
Right, yeah. Jay, what you say about the people, the what was it, a test or something that you took to see how people react to?
Oh, the something Briggs.
Yeah, and you were saying you took
Maya
it,
Briggs,
and it showed how people, subconsciously are more.
They attempting to be white without them even knowing it themselves.
It's like you're basically like, you're not trying to be you.
Yeah.
You're really not trying to be you. It's like people like
don't even know what you is.
That's why I don't get caught up in like the hype of like the bougie and the head wraps and the woke and the this and the because when it's all said and done, it's blood on all our hands.
Okay. Yeah.
If whatever we doing is not providing some form of service to elevate our community, our people, even if it's just a mentoring somebody, then you just trying to be white. You just trying to stay out the way. You just trying to blend in.
Right.
You're not really still trying to continue the work that has gone on and continue.
Right.
You know, it's deep. We want to talk about and criticize, talk about the TMZ, right?
Yeah.
And how they choose to reveal certain things or whatever. Let's not act like there's not black platforms that do that.
They do the same.
But then
thing.
on top of that, I'll give you this. I find out that certain members of my family found out of my brother's passing from a pulpit. Someone, a preacher, caught up in the moment, wanted to bring that extra heartstring tug, maybe so they can get a little extra in that, dropped in that plate, and decided they want to talk about someone who passed away. See, it's in every arena.
Yeah.
And
that's
these type of things, it's like the who killed Malcolm X thing.
Yeah.
One of the biggest
Still
reveals.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, well, but one of the
I
biggest.
feel a way about that, John.
One of the biggest reveals of it, though, is
I'm-
what it showed is that a very long time ago, even before that Malcolm X thing, I'm talking about slavery. I'm talking about whatever. They figured out that if they can divide us, we would ultimately eliminate ourselves,
implode upon each other
because they know they couldn't necessarily do it themselves.
Yeah.
But they can.
Yeah,
It's
they're
almost
not
like
strong
it's
enough
almost
to do it
it's almost like
themselves,
so they
right?
can keep perpetuating like, oh, see, it's like
Exactly,
it's like that implicit, that implicit bias.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, Jay son, man, you speak so well, you so eloquent,
Yeah.
right? And people be in these environments. They go to these Ivy League schools, and trust me, I went through it at Carnegie Mellon. There were times when a teacher would say something, and I would have to do a double take. I remember there was an exercise one time called Earth My Body, Water My Blood, the spirit thing, right? Go figure, right? And of course, they give you instructions to commit a little bit more to the exercise, right? So, I noticed with some of the other students, she would, use more theater terms. Come from your diaphragm and, do whatever, right?
Right.
And so then when she got to me, she said, "Come on, W, do it like a Bushman. Commit."
Oh man.
Right? So I held my hand up and I said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." So what did they say? Then at that point, the narrative
Bushman?
became, "Oh, he's difficult.
Yeah, it changes.
Oh,
yeah.
he's a hard head." And so what I'm saying to y'all, at some point, you have to stand up. If you ain't willing to stand up for your people, at least stand up for yourself so you can be an example
Right.
for others. Because we got to get it better, man. And life is short. I don't know what's about to happen that God prevented my brother to have to go through, but I'm scared. Me personally knowing the personal torture and hell that my brother had been going through for the last 13 years since my father died. And for God to then say, "Oh, well, wait a minute, 5 days before his birthday, there's something that's about to happen."
Okay.
That he said, I ain't gonna, now that's when I look at the spirit world. That's when I believe in God. And if we gonna believe that God is in control of all things, you can't say he's in control of all things and then don't believe in Mars or Jupiter. Well, he didn't make space. He didn't make the universe.
Yeah. Nah, he definitely did.
You can't say that, oh, well, we gonna pray for this, but you telling me he didn't make the doctors that then found the things, the natural resources that God created also, that then they could use the brain, quote unquote, that God created also. See, we live in hypocrisy. It's just selective morality, picking and choosing. It's out of sight, out of mind. So, black folk, please We got to regain our narrative and the control of it. It's killing our young people. Our sisters are still the most disrespected women and people on the planet. The divide between black men and women have been so rewritten and rearranged that now you know sisters will roll their eyes at you for just simply holding the door for them. I mean, really.
And that's purposeful too.
But I don't blame. But see, I don't blame us for that because I know our history.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I know our history.
That didn't come from us.
I know what we have still survived to even get to the moment of the current friction of whatever existing in our thing. So I don't blame us. But I only blame us when we know better and we choose to not do better.
Yeah.
At that point, hey, it's a cop-out, and you're settling for that fake God and the devil, which are basically two scapegoats for not taking responsibility for your own actions and your own behavior. I'm sorry, the doors of the church open.
I just realized
my cash app. Nah,
tell it for real.
My cash app is $WE Felton. No West, no S in it. $WE Felton. So if you received the message just now, you're more than welcome. I promise that it will actually go towards feeding my son and me and things like that. And I won't buy a Cadillac or some fancy $1,000 shoes or any of that.
Right. I just realized Wes Felton is Jay's son to the 25th power, I think. Nah, man, but like I said, it's a level of honesty in these moments that's so necessary, and I appreciate you coming through and sharing that message with us. I want to ask you, in the midst of everything that you just said, in the midst of all of the hypocrisy, all of the demonization of our people, the rift between the men and the women, all that, how do you use that, or do you use that to help to feed your art? How does that? What does your art?
See, then that's the beauty. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm a lucky one.
Okay.
I'm lucky because my parents at no point ever told me that something that I wanted to do or a passion that I was drawn to, that I couldn't do it. Simply because they couldn't relate to it, or if it wasn't something in line of their beliefs or their social constructs of what what you're supposed to do, right? Yeah. Now, they wanted me to hopefully go to college because they had college experience. My brother and sister also had went to college, so they said, well, we've done that, so maybe, but they didn't say you have to, or we'll disown you, or we'll have to, and we're going to judge you. Right.
That's alien now, right? Because it's so common now to have people that's not given a path, or not having a path structure for them. You know what I'm saying? And so having the freedom to. So that's where
So they let me have my. They let me find myself.
Okay.
In the midst of just teaching me morality. That's it. My father taught me black power and black love. My mother taught me spirituality and the healing power of prayer. Not the lottery power of prayer, but the actual healing power of prayer. And the irony of it is that the minister who made that announcement out of his pulpit, I remember some years ago when I was a preteen, and I was in a car accident with that man and his wife was expecting at that time, and I immediately went into prayer on her pregnant belly, and now that daughter of theirs is now, I believe, a grown woman now.
Okay.
So I'm just
the irony of it coming full circle.
This is I've actually been working on a book,
Okay.
35 things on Wikipedia.
Right.
Yeah. I've been working on a book where I'm going to talk a little bit more about just my personal experience, but I'm going to include anecdotes and some of the stories and trips from my career, but then also kind of some of the things that I'm talking about a little bit, because I think that you know, some people like Campbell's chicken noodle soup for the soul. But I personally like that kind where you actually, it's a process.
Yeah.
Where you cutting the
it
chicken.
Ain't coming out of the
you
can
filleting
already.
it, and
yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly. 100%.
So I think that we need some of that out here, you know. But yeah, so my parents, they basically, they are the ones, and they're the source of, like, my ability to learn how to compartmentalize and find outlets to release the frustrations of the world. Right, I think them having 2 older kids, they realize that the cliche way isn't guaranteed.
Right.
Okay, putting your kids in private school, putting your kids through this, is not a guarantee that they're going to follow directions when they get to a certain age. And you might still need them to follow directions. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay? But that's a narrative. That's a fake narrative. Right?
Yeah, none of that.
So they didn't put that pressure on me, and I was able to really, through the examples of, you know, I could say for my brother, my sister was she was older, so she was out of the house by the time I became really engaging. And he would, you know, I would ear hustle his phone calls and hear how he talked to girls, or listen to how he would talk to his homeboys and hear how they talked about girls and, you know, things like that. Because my father didn't live in my home, so my brother became, you know, that's another thing. My brother, you know, in some instances it's a choice, but but then again, my brother in some ways wasn't allowed to be a big brother in that environment, because he had to try to assume a role again, because society makes you feel that pressure to try to be kind of fatherly.
Right. And so that's why when you say the roles reversed. Yeah.
You know, so that's what happens in life. They say your parent and the child, they kind of switch roles. And that occurred. But then with that said, my brother, I remember eventually he was talented as well and a piano singer, but he chose, you know, he ended up in the professional world, and then a family with multiple kids. And if you know, like I know, if you haven't already kind of established something, you know what I'm saying, in your career before that, that's retirement basically for artists.
Because we talked about that last
there's
week.
nothing unless you in the dope game, or you out here selling music about the dope game, you probably ain't gonna make the amount of money that's necessary to keep a wife happy and 5 kids attention and get them in programs that's gonna keep them in, or you understand what I'm saying? So there was always part of me who not only felt that I needed to continue the legacy of my father, but I always assumed that I had to then resume the journey of my brother, who was not able to, you know, do music and arts for a living and for a career, and maybe go to school for that. He went to school for engineering and stuff like that. So. It's a you know, so the journey all along was just a support system. I was lucky, man. I was lucky because I know a lot of people whose parents would just shut down. Anything.
Definitely.
Their kids could be talented in something, and if it doesn't fall into however they're brainwashed or fall into like how they want to make that person be, they'll just completely be like, they won't get behind it. So parents, please get behind your children's dreams, their passions. Please.
But looking at it from the other side, because you said you have a son, right?
Yeah, I do.
And so looking at it from the other side.
I got a lot of questions for
Yeah. I'm
gonna let Dave is more professional, so he does research and asks questions. Me, I just know you. I'm like, I got a rack of shit I'm gonna ask him when he get here. So mine is
I'm gonna throw mine out there, and I'm gonna let Jay get it in. So,
right.
But I was gonna say, seeing that same perspective from the other side of being a parent, you could definitely understand like because I feel like that fear in your parents that makes them say, don't try that, go with the safer bet, and it comes from a place of of love, even though it's misguided love because they don't understand the damage that
No,
they're doing
it's not
to you.
love. It's
I was about
fear.
to say that too.
It's
I was like,
fear.
I don't know, Dave.
It's fear, man.
No,
It's
it
fear.
definitely, yeah.
It's fear. It's
It's
fear.
misguided, but it's fear. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fear.
yeah,
It's fear.
definitely. But would you say being a parent? Would you say it's understandable or no? It's definitely. I mean, me understanding how
I think that
detrimental it is, I would never do
I
it.
believe that there's a big difference between raising and supporting and teaching your child versus controlling your child.
Yeah, yeah.
You are
and even that
stripping.
control
You are
come from
stripping.
fear, though,
The
right?
one thing that we are born in this world with is our free will.
Right. Yeah, and stripping it is.
And then we just add baggage as we get along.
Yeah,
we buy
yeah.
things and learn more things and choose what we acquire and want to retain and all that.
Yeah,
But we're born with, that's the one thing. So a kid, that's why a lot of times some kids, you know how they'll say the terrible twos or the this or the that,
Yeah.
whatever. Like we ain't have to deal with that, the terrible
Right.
twos.
Me
But
either.
I'll tell you this, I'm dealing with the scary ass 16s.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say.
You
so,
understand what
Oh,
I mean?
let me come in, Dave. Coming in hot.
Go ahead.
All right, so-
Go ahead. I'm gonna save mine. Go ahead.
You can come right after this because
Go
this
ahead.
one ain't all deep and shit like
Okay.
that. A lot.
All right.
So we leave here right now. Walk outside the door. Go to the basketball court. Pick up Tobias. 1-on-1. Who wins?
Who, me and him?
Yep.
I think I haven't played basketball in probably since the weather was warm.
Tobias wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tobias is his son. Is your son?
Yeah, I would
Okay,
probably,
I just wanted to clarify.
I would probably be
That's
winded. I
fine.
mean,
That's
now quietly, depending on what we're going to, what number we going to.
21. We're going 21.
Oh hell no!
You
He's
outta
going.
here. Gassed.
You talking about all of us?
No, you
Just
and
me and
him.
him.
1-on-1.
Oh yeah, 21.
Half-court.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gassed, man.
Yeah.
But
He
I
got
will
you.
tell you this though. When I still do run and play ball because a lot of people don't know that I play
Okay, you
basketball.
still ball, yeah.
But what I do is I cheat because I might have to put a little bronchial pump in my short
Okay.
pocket.
Yeah, over your yeah.
Because then and then usually if I have to pump it once or twice, I'm really good at that point, and then
Okay.
I can run. But when I first started out there, boy.
All right, so
It's some
Yeah.
weed in that.
So he's definitely got and Tobias is like 6'2", man.
Right,
He's like
exactly.
taller than me.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Tobias is a way better jump shooter than I am, and he's taller.
all right, so
That's dope.
School Without Walls.
That's right. Let's go
16 years
Penguins.
old.
Let's go Penguins.
16 years old.
Yes.
Tobias. 16 years old. Who wins?
I think me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What were you?
because-
What were you? 5'7"?
No, I wasn't. I didn't get that much taller. I'm the height I am now.
Oh, okay.
So I was
16.
Yeah, so I was still a good height when I got to a certain point, but I think me because I have the energy.
Right.
At that time, you know, I didn't start smoking weed till I became a father.
Right.
Like straight up.
It'll do it to you.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what-
telling you. I
Yeah.
said, you know, I didn't grow up my parents didn't feed. I wasn't a medicine baby, so my parents didn't feed me pills and things like that. Whenever something was wrong with me, they would always try to find,
Yeah,
you know,
teas and
natural,
tonics.
and
Yeah.
or sometimes they would just sit my ass in the bathroom and run the shower and close the doors
Yeah.
and steam out
Steam
whatever
it.
the hell
Oh,
was wrong with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
the
and,
healing power of steam. People don't even realize. Like,
so as I
something
got
so
older, I
natural.
just never had that habit and routine of popping pills.
Right.
And so I just remember, like, you know, going to Boston one time with my son's mom to visit her family in Boston, and you know, one of my son's relatives, he asked me to ride with him to the grocery store, and I was like, cool. And at that time, my son was still very much like, you know, maybe 1 year old barely, or maybe 2, maybe. And I rode with him to the grocery store, and we get in the car. You know, he goes in his pocket, he pulls out a J, and he's like, hey, you know, hey, Dub, you want to smoke a bone? And I was like, and I thought to myself, like, oh, shit. Is this a test?
Right.
Because her family Italian. They had, like,
Right.
she's mixed. So, like, that family was the Italian family that we were visiting at
Okay.
that time, right? So,
In
I'm
Boston.
like, yeah.
My goodness.
So, so I was like, so I'm thinking to myself, like, is this motherfucker setting me up? Is this a test? Or
I
whatever?
knew you smoked.
So I thought to myself, like, well, but then there was another part of me is like, well, shit, I ain't smoked weed in years, so I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah,
smoke
yeah,
and,
yeah.
like, kirk out on
It'd
me.
be
Right.
like super- right.
If he's paranoid or something, right?
Right.
So I smoked the trees with him, and we got into that grocery store, man. And when I tell you, for the first time since I had been a dad, I just was coasting around in that grocery store. But more specifically, it wasn't a sense of escapism. What I started discovering was it allowed me to be able to compartmentalize things versus putting everything all in the same box. That's what destroys us. That's what creates stress. That's what creates anxiety. I was told when I was very young that my stress and my anxiety doesn't affect me the way normal people, like they get headaches and maybe tense in their shoulders. Mine is very stomach related.
Okay. Yeah.
I get nauseous. I get, you know what I'm saying? I lose my appetite and things like that. And so I was like, man, like, okay, I think now I'm at a point in my life where I can handle, first of all, cannabis. I don't think everyone, I'm a pro cannabis activist, trust me, but I also believe in the control of it a little bit. Because I know a lot of cats growing up who smoked 1J and they were never the same ever again. Now, granted, there might have been love boat or something or whatever in there.
Yeah.
But for some people, they just they don't need to be doing things until they are in a place where they have a better control of their emotions, a better idea of, how to navigate. You know what I'm saying?
And that's any substance. Yeah,
but that's,
I got more, but I'm going to let Dave. Dave has something waiting. Go ahead.
Well,
he's a
I
professional.
was just, it was about the whole thing, the balance of having kids and changing it around. But I don't even know where it was. What you got, Jay?
Good. So, all right. So, Tobias is where? DeMatha?
He goes to DeMatha.
So, all right. So, you're a dad, and you're a former basketball player.
Yes.
Describe, because I'm a dad, too, with a son that plays basketball. Describe, like, how it feels to have your son playing for DeMatha in particular.
Well, for me personally, one, I don't believe in private schools.
Okay, me either.
I never.
That's why I want to hear your thoughts.
I never attended a private school ever in my life. My siblings did private school their whole life, from elementary all the way through high school. My brother went to DeMatha. My sister went to Seton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they were my parents.
I get it. I went to Carroll, so
my
I
parents
know
were
the
trying
whole,
to. My parents were trying to, make it happen. And I personally, identified in my son at a very early age that the personality mixture of his mother and I put together, and what he has, that Tobias is, he has a very strong personality. Okay? His mother has a strong, very, mildly controlling personality. I have a very controlling personality sometimes, because I told you at a very early age I decided that I was going to control my destiny. I let people know out the gate, right? So Tobias, I believe, I don't think those kind of environments are the best for him sometimes.
Well, I agree.
And so, but in this instance, he, because his mom has the majority of custody of him, and he's in a more structured situation over there. I guess he has a stepdad there, so on paper that comes across maybe as normal, right?
Right, but that's what I'm talking about.
Whereas, for me, I would have I've wanted to have full custody of my son since he was born, because not necessarily because that's what I wanted per se, but I identified very early what kind of personality he had, in knowing him as a black boy, and then when I saw him when I saw the size of his foot.
You already knew what time it was.
Kid,
yes, sir.
When next thing you know, when he's like, 10 years old, and he's like putting on my shoe, not even 10, like 8 or 9, he can fit my shoe. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then I would go to places. So I remember going to, he was in aftercare at John Eaton, his elementary school, and you always got them couple brothers there that help. Or in the building, right. Usually either young black men or older black men, right? And they all would come and be like, yo, they would pull me aside and be like, yo, man, your boy, he can ball.
Nice.
It was like he can ball.
But that's,
he said,
that's what I'm talking
they
about.
didn't. But they was like, but they didn't put him on the John Eaton team because of his personality. And I said, I just shook my head, and I got it, and because I knew, I understood it, right?
Yeah.
And I saw it, and then I said, okay. So then my son then said, Dad, I want to make a record. Okay. So I said, I warned him. I said, well, I'm just gonna tell you, Tobias, this is gonna cause and create a lot of problems. I'm just telling you, it's gonna rip bandages off your mom that she probably hasn't healed from regarding my art, and separating the personal life from the art, right. And things like that. So just be mindful that besides that, you then got the rest of the world that's going to either be offended, either like it, either not. Yeah. So
basically chew you up and spit you out.
So you know what I mean? I said, but it might hurt a little more when it comes from somebody who's immediately in your life, right? And he said, well, we still do it. So we did it. Oh man, it was great. The kids got response. The City Paper did a good article, whatever. Nice. But I caught hell for it. There was a conclusion because he was at the age where he couldn't really articulate in a way to defend himself, and kids that have 2-parent homes, they know how to play the 2 parents, so they're able to like
that manipulation skill comes in quick.
Yeah, so I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, oh man, like this dude is wild, yo, like he sold me out, yo, he made his mom believe
that it was you,
that this was my idea. Any artist that or anybody would never try to get their kid into the music industry.
Definitely.
My father didn't do that.
That question, they
you
always
said,
no.
That's something that that's either your calling or it's not. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of, after that, I just fell back on that. And it's like, I'm going to have to kind of approach this guy a little different. He's a little bit more off the chain than I thought. You know what I'm saying? Right. But also I was aware because of his age. But at least I knew I had the comfort of knowing that before it unfolded, I told him. So at least we kind of we let it play out, but on the inside we were laughing because we predicted what was going to happen. You know what I mean? So, but besides that, but you were saying, what were you asking me?
So here's what I was.
Yeah, so that's Tobias
in particular. Like no.
So 16.
Playing basketball.
Yeah, well,
so forget the politics.
Well, let me tell you about DeMatha. If you're talking about DeMatha, it's politics.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It is. I was excited for him. I wasn't excited necessarily that he made it on DeMatha's basketball team. I was more excited that in the midst of the turmoil and chaos that was going on in his individual life at that time,
right.
His mom and he were going through a really rough patch. He was feeling really unsupported at that time, and this all happened like days before it was his big tryout for DeMatha.
Right.
And Tobias went in there as a kid who transferred from a school that had absolutely no athletic program, Edmund Burke, and no type of black culture, but just black students up there. He, went into this majority black male, alpha male environment.
Yeah, it's not easy to make the basketball team. That's why I'm asking.
And as a non-recruit, and like went in there and got us and made the team. I remember I was out of town and my mom sent me a picture of him in his uniform. And I was just like, I remember he
gotta be the first tryout.
That's what I was trying to get to. Like, yo.
Well, he went to the first tryout, and then they asked him back. And I said, good, okay. I said, well, just stay focused, buddy. Just stay focused. And at that time, he was staying with me.
Okay.
During those tryout week. So he knew I was going to make sure that he gets good rest, make sure he just focused, right? But more than anything, really try to make the environment for him as stressless as possible because, his mom and stepdad can't relate to trying out for DeMatha.
Right.
They don't know the severity of
what it is.
What it means. You know what I mean? Like, there might not. I don't think there's quite. They've done some great things in their respective careers, but there's still not quite something that has even
right. That's why I asked you about it because it's like it's only a culture.
And for a 16-year-old to have that level of pressure on them, and for Tobias to do that,
to succeed,
he didn't surprise me, but DeMatha surprised me.
Right.
Okay.
I knew he had it in him, and I knew he could do it.
Yeah.
I was just more surprised, like, damn, yo, like. he totally could have crumbled because it was just so much.
And
it was so much extra stuff
nobody
for this
would've batted
16-year-old kid to deal with. And he might have been 15 at the time. So actually, he was 15.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't even 16 yet. And it was just like, wow, man. So, that was good.
How much of that moment? Let me ask you. Just because, like you say, he's in a situation where there's a stepdad and a mom in the situation, but so much of that ability to stand up to adversity and triumph, because you have an active role in his life, came from like how much like. I don't even know the word, like joy or pride, like that moment. Can you describe that moment?
For me, it was exciting, But see, for me, I've never sought for credit because my parents didn't do that with me.
Right.
So when I let's say, for example, when I produced my first record that actually like was on the radio and I had a video on BET and things like that. My dad was like, that's your accomplishment. My dad didn't say, well, he gets that from me.
Right, because he was a musician. Yeah.
Like, and ultimately what you want, moms won't necessarily be able to relate to this because unless it's a daughter maybe.
Right. Yeah.
But for the father-son dynamic, if at any point in life that your son can eclipse you and he's no longer W. Ellington Felton's son, but I'm Tobias Felton's dad.
That's what you become.
That means job well.
That's the goal.
Done.
That's what I was gonna say. Right. That should be the goal.
Your job should be wanting your son to
get to that point,
make as much money, do as much as possible, way before you did. It's not your job to put him in some type of status quo or somebody else's narrative. That's it. So Tobias, my only request for him is just to be mindful of respect. And self-control. Like I tell my students when I go into schools all the time that listen, and this will be third graders all the way up to college students, and I'll say, look, as soon as you master self-control, you will be able to dominate in whatever it is you want to do, because it's that self-control and that self-restraint that usually ruins it all for everybody. So
exactly.
Yeah, I heard a quote before. It was like, if you can control what you put in your mouth, you can control anything else. I was like, wow, it's pretty deep.
And that's the key to so much. Like you said, that self-control is the issue, and I think that it's purposely being kind of taken. The knowledge of that is purposely kind of being taken out of what we're learning, what we're taught as kids. You see so many kids now that don't have that level of self-control or don't understand.
I know him.
Oh, okay.
Don't
understand.
Know everybody.
It.
Well, it's Wes, but
it's random to see him here. That's my man.
But yeah, it's that's.
You got more questions, Dave?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Like you mentioned, having work on the radio and things of that nature. Like I remember, doing the open mic scene, like U Street and all that, and I would see you everywhere. And I didn't know, and I knew your name from from people like Droopy and different people like that. I would hear your name mentioned, and just working that area is such a a profound part of what DC artists do. Like I would even, when I got into music management, I would have my artists go like that U Street corridor is important. How much of that that experience in that time, like basically running that corridor, influenced you and built who you are as an artist?
It was important. So some people might know and some people don't know, but before I went away to college, I used to get snuck into a lot of the poetry things. Because a lot of people didn't know that I was still a high school student.
Okay.
Because I was like a serious writer at 14 and 15, where I was writing real poems and short stories and things like that. And there was a place not too far from Georgetown that was called It's Your Mug that basically picked off from a place and workshop that we used to go to, very small, intimate, that used to be at 14th and U, called Soul Brothers Pizza. Soul Brothers Pizza was the same family and owners who then moved down the street after the untimely death of one of the brothers and partners. His brother, who was a chef and well as co-owner, went down the street and opened up a place called Mangoes. So at that time, those are the only things in that area that were doing something where they were letting people come in and like do that, except for like
don't-
State of the Union. But
Right,
those are
right,
more
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, that was kind of like a small concert venue, basically, right? But I went away to college after that, and then when I came back, there were a couple of other places.
Yeah, it
Then
started
at that point,
booming
you had
more.
a Bar None.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just kind of came back in almost as like an outsider. I didn't have the ego or difficulty being made felt like I was an outsider coming in, because I knew the history of DC artists.
Yeah, you knew where it was from.
And I know how we treat DC artists, even the ones we now celebrate.
Right, yeah.
They were not celebrated when they were here.
not
Do
at
not
all.
believe the hype.
No, not at all.
They had to leave. In some instances, they were pushed out this month.
That's kind of been your theory too, right?
Yeah.
It's not my theory.
Well, I mean,
Think about it. Look at
I
history.
worded
Duke
that
Ellington.
wrong. I worded that wrong.
Duke Ellington,
No, I'm
he
with
had to
you.
go.
Yeah.
He had to leave. Marvin.
You went back
Well,
too.
what
I'm
I
thinking
guess
like
a better
local
statement-
people.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
okay.
A better,
Go- that's what
a
I'm
better
saying.
statement is
Yeah.
you have highlighted the truth in that
Yeah.
Okay.
throughout your
Yeah,
career.
they've been doing
Right,
it since
right.
Benjamin Banneker.
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
been giving other people credit and downplaying the credit of the black male
gotta go
artists
away,
in this
though.
area forever.
You think that's still necessary now? Like, can an artist break today in DC?
No, DC is the truck stop of arts and entertainment.
The truck stop.
Yeah,
Wow.
people can come here. Some people can come here and buy gas, food, and souvenirs. Some people can come here and just eat. Some
Just
people
eat.
can come here and like eat, buy things, hang out, and pay for everybody else.
Right, right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then what happens? They go back
They
to
get
where
on
they're
where
going,
yeah,
or
yeah.
they just keep it moving.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't cultivate and strength. We don't have the outlets and the type of venues like we used to have. Like
Yeah.
besides State of the Union, Mango's, Bar None, we had a place called DC Cafe.
Yeah.
Metro Cafe, which was down like 14th, closer towards 14th and P.
Okay.
You know, people were forced to mix in the venues back in the day. So like State of the Union, in some instance, you know, it was nothing for like you to go into, you know, some of us, a population of us, to go into Republic Gardens for happy hour because they had happy hour prices. They had the bomb ass buffet, free, you know, the tenders. And the, you know, shoot, that sister used to kill it in there. The jerk
Yeah,
wings,
yeah.
whatever, you know, or Catfish Fridays was catering or something, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
then you getting couple dollar drinks, you know, and plus we know some of the bartenders. We'd go in there, and there was nothing for us to go in there for happy hour, and then after happy hour, after we got nice, you know,
Right.
we go walk right down the steps, go in the State of the Union, and we could walk in there, and it could be D'Angelo just on electric piano in there.
Yeah.
And then you go in the back, there's a local DJ that's spinning reggae. And then after D'Angelo, whoever's done, you know, you got like a bomb ass hip hop, like real hip hop
Yeah,
DJ.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We don't have that anymore.
Nah.
But when you looked around, it was everybody in there.
Yeah, it was all
It was
culture.
the punk
Yeah.
rockers.
Yeah.
But that was the original tradition of DC culture, and our culture has been wiped out at such a way because people don't know the history. And for some reason that guy from what's the rock band that they always got? That's the white boy. That's the drummer and singer, and he somehow is always the official validator of DC music history.
From Bad Brains.
No, I'm talking about the white boy. So
Oh, okay.
now that's what I was about to. You just tapped to kind of something what I was.
Well, you just said DC and
What's his
punk.
name? What's the dude?
Don't nobody knows, but
Grover,
you.
He did a documentary on HBO. They let him do a series where he went, but he always
I don't be following
Grogan.
white
You know,
people like
all right. Well, there's this rock band where maybe if someone's watching or whatever.
Yeah, if you
they're
comment
from
on here, let us know
I think
what
they're
the
from
band
Northern
is.
Virginia or somewhere or whatever.
Oh,
But they're
right.
really huge,
Makes
big
sense.
band.
Really?
But anyway, and basically, a lot of people don't know that
I feel like
the hip hop and go-go and punk, those communities were the only ones that were embracing each other's art forms. So it was
Right,
nothing
right.
for you to go and see a Minor Threat show that might have had like, you know, a little go-go band on there, or they have Bad Brains or whoever, and they would do these things up at Wilson Senior High School. as well as the Madams Organ, which is the original Madams Organ, which is all the way at the bottom of the hill of Adams Morgan. It's not the one we know now.
So
they would be
location,
so black, white, all types would pack into this room to see these progressive, see these local people, and they were dedicated to them.
Right.
Ultimately, bands like Bad Brains were banned from DC. They were kicked out of the city because they were black guys that were doing music that maybe the system or the power structure at that time didn't really understand and didn't get it.
Oh, wow.
And see the power of it. So they had to go to they left. They had to go to New York. And one of the best quotes I ever heard one of them say was, DC is not a place for artists. It's a place for politicians and restaurant owners.
Right.
Those are the only people who are able to really
flourish
and looked at as like, oh, I'm a support. I know so many people that won't buy a $1 song of mine, but they spend at least $80 a day on drinking or eating something at some white guy's restaurant in DC.
I got a lot of questions. What you got, Dave?
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna, cause I mean, we already like it's 12:40.
For real?
But I mean, we can go as long as you want to go. I don't want to keep you here
for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. I don't want to. Yeah. So
we can speed the questions up. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm free all day today.
Okay. So I just want to go back a little bit to the birth of the idea. Like, when did you find out that art was something that you were going to pursue professionally or make, your life's vision and choice? Was there a moment, or was it something that came gradually as you realized you could do it?
I think that like many, in elementary school, I did a talent show with some friends of mine. We did a little rap group with the Van Grack black.
Man, you took it back.
Van Grack
sweatsuits. And at that time, rap still wasn't cool in DC.
Right.
So we people kind of, there was either the girls thought it was cute what we did, but the dudes usually hated on it or clowned us. But we didn't care because we still had like name brand or more flyer brands at that time. So it didn't matter. The superficialness of our people is sometimes dumb as shit. The logic be dumb sometimes. It's like that gang shit, red and blue, colors and shit, right? So anyway. But we would so I was always inclined. I was always musically inclined, and because of my dad and my brother. But ultimately, I ended up I started. I think at some point, I got asked to do a poetry reading at Bucum Cafe. It was like an African restaurant because it was an open mic. And someone was doing, a poetry event. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess, that was, that was something we did. But not being there with like Tony Asante Lightfoot, DJ Renegade, Tony Blackman, and maybe like one other person, and Willie Ascari. Okay, who was like one of our elders, one of the oldest guys. They basically would have these lineups like that, and then I would be like the random like younger guy, who they thought was a little older. I don't know if they thought I went to Howard or what, but I was straight up at school without walls. You know what I'm saying? And I remember agreeing to do it, and they, it was nice, man. To see my name on a flyer and stuff like that, and then afterwards, the brother handed me an envelope. Opened the envelope, and it was for that age, like 14, 15, it was a good look.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It was definitely enough for me to go to Boogie's Diner or Urban Outfitters or wherever or wherever I would want it at that time to cop some sell items a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever I needed as a kid.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, oh, I do this now.
Okay.
So moving forward at that point, unless it was like at school or something, I wasn't doing no more free like performances. So you move forward. I then was on Teen Summit on BET.
Okay.
And on that experience being on there for 3 years, I learned the ins and outs of the industry. I mean, from the rooter to the tutor, from the perception to the prestige. And taking ingredients from all of that stuff, I then said, okay, whatever I do, I definitely want to. It's going to be something in the arts and entertainment world, but I don't want to necessarily limit myself to just calling myself a singer or a rapper or a poet or whatever.
Yeah,
I wanted to take on the title of an artist. And then you speed up some years later. My first major big break was by way of Prince Paul, who gave me the coin and title of the hip hop Sammy Davis Jr. And that was the first time somebody ever said that. And I was like, because, he was like, he did an interview and he was like, yeah, this guy, I got this new guy, W. Ellington Felton, on my record, and he's like the hip hop Sammy Davis Jr. And he, because he writes and he's an actor and he's a poet and he raps, right? Right?
Yeah.
And so that was another moment of validation for me, positive validation, where I said, where most people would say, man, pick a thing.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Decide what you want to do.
Yeah. Do you have one that you enjoy more between the acting?
Definitely acting. Definitely acting is my thing.
Okay.
Which, by the way, we for some folks, if you haven't had a chance,
Netflix.
Yeah, there's a film that I had an opportunity to act in that just came out on Netflix called Love.com. So I'm excited about that. But acting is definitely my thing. 16 years ago when I had a son, I made a conscious effort to kind of fall back and tone down my energy that I normally would have exerted towards the acting field, just because that was just a choice I made to just be more present.
Because building that career takes
and not just physically, but emotionally. A lot of people don't understand. Like, if you're a real actor, like you can, I done dated chicks and they've dated me while I've been working on a play or something, and we broke up because if they don't understand the process and the moment of like, okay, sometimes depending on how the performance goes, it's easier to get out of it, and sometimes it's harder. You get stuck in that character. At least for me, you know what I mean? But acting, that's definitely I prefer that because it tends to be a little bit more bigger payoff nowadays. But music, I'm gonna always enjoy music because I believe that we can complain about the quality and the content of music all we want, but I feel like, if I'm not actively at least creating content as an option to, counterbalance that stuff, then, shut the fuck up.
Right.
You know
Bottom line. Yeah, you got one, Jay?
That's the problem. Everybody in the bleachers, all these spectators got
so much to
got
say.
the main game, right?
All right, so I have 3 questions
Go ahead.
in the form of song titles.
Okay. Cool.
You're a musician, I'm a musician. Well, everybody's an artist up here.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Oh, first question. Marvin Gaye. What's going on? Blanket statement.
You just opened the door for
everything he predicted still.
Which is?
Black men being misunderstood, protesters being misunderstood, wars, rumors of war, mothers still dying. Mothers still crying from, the deaths of their children via, violently, yeah.
Okay, good answer. Part 2. DMX. What these bitches want from a nigga?
Well, it depends. They want 2 things. They either want a dog and who will feed them Alpo, aka whatever it is that they desire, their wants, and not necessarily their true needs to acquire to provide happiness. I used to tell people all the time, man. You and then they complain when they end up with these dudes. And I used to say all the time, if you're sick of dating dogs, stop feeding them Alpo. So, but I'll say that's what they want. But they also want, they want. I think that they want love. They want to feel. They want to feel wanted. They want to feel desired. But there's also part of them that want to feel control. And it's important that we have to understand that in this society and in this culture, in order to gain control, there's a certain level of power that has to be identified. And hey, if you paying the bills, you running the show. I get it, right? But don't be that person and then complain about it every other day or whatever.
You can't have it
Right.
both
Get the fuck
ways.
out
I
of it.
say it
Right.
all the time. You can't have it both
Like,
ways.
get the fuck out of it, right?
Right.
Now, if you're in a situation where the man is just taking care of everything, then ain't nothing in life for free. That just means that that means you're probably going to have to adjust and
Bring that balance.
follow the rules or something.
Yeah.
But if you're a person who's just looking for somebody who's like-minded, somebody's happy, one thing I'll give my brother props. One thing for sure, before he died, his last wife is a young lady who he was able to enjoy.
Yeah, that's important.
They were able to enjoy. You know what I'm saying? And then in the midst of him, in the process of his struggles and his ebbs and flows, she still would come with love.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people, we will anticipate what we're doing or who we're about to engage, knowing the personality. And we will use that as an excuse to change who we are. That's that fake devil. The devil made me do it. God made me do it. Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. This is a good segue to the next.
So that's
to the
that.
next.
So I think they want what everybody wants, but depending on just where they are in their growth as a human being and as a person who's really seeking to experience true ultimate love before they leave this planet. Because a lot of people will never, they'll go their whole life and will never experience unconditional love.
Hey, real quick, look, before you go to the next one, just on this same topic, do you think that person exists for everybody out there?
Absolutely, I think it's multiple. I think
For real, I did not expect that from you, Wes.
I think we have multiple. I think we have multiple soulmates in this world. I think that it's just based on the timing of when you meet them.
Oh man.
That's all. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, and this is real transparent. It might be a little TMI, but I'll say probably 75% of the women that I've ever encountered throughout my life, and I said to myself, like, I'm attracted to her. It at some point manifested itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of them people.
You got a good success rate, nigga.
Hey, I mean, but look, now don't get it twisted. Maybe the perception of what I do for a living helps, or maybe the perception. I fully acknowledge that. But my point is that I've just learned that we make things out to be tougher than than they really are.
Human nature.
Because you got to think about it. Think about this. If a nigga on the corner that's homeless, or a homeless person downtown can have a girlfriend out there homeless with him, I see it like this. In the last 3 years, I done seen more niggas that were homeless that had girls than I did.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it goes to show you that all that other stuff is just more stuff to think about and worry about. Some distractions. There's more stuff to just keep you, as a consumer, and more excuses to buy more things and so forth and so. So that's just how it goes down. But it's So that's that.
Yeah,
they want
so-
that. They
yeah,
just
I
want
wanna-
love.
I ain't want to mix up your last. Go ahead.
No, it all fits. So
Right.
the last one, Tupac Shakur. Who do you believe in?
Well, I believe in myself.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
I in the midst of doubting myself, because I fully acknowledge and I am aware that I am a human and that I'm not perfect. But what I will say, you know, being an artist, or an entrepreneur or self-employed, it allows you a lot of time for self-development and self-improvement. Like a lot of people, you know, will know that they got toxic or messed up personality traits or qualities. And they say to the person who's affected by them, like, I promise I'm gonna change, or I promise that. But because they still have life to keep up with, or a regular routine of a 9 to 5, or you understand what I'm saying? They really don't have time to work on themselves.
Right.
And then when they go on vacation,
I'm triggered.
And then when they go on vacation, they're not even. That's not even the time where they get to work on themselves.
Right.
That's
so
just a time to try to escape.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Or be with their significant other and fronting like when they get back home, they're not gonna be. They're gonna be cool. Nigga, you gonna be on the couch. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I definitely trust myself because I know for the last I swear, man, for a long time, I would say. The relationship that I was in when my father passed away, I really realized, you know, how certain personality traits that I have, where my intentions or my intent could be one of just trying to be truthful, transparent, and vocally supportive, how it could come off, depending on the delivery, as harm. And that's something personally that, you know, I can honestly admit that up until now, it probably took me like 12 years to fix that part of me. And it's still a work in progress, but I at least know that I consciously acknowledge that, and I deal with it daily. Because we as men have allowed this whole toxic masculinity and all this crap gain such a narrative and representation of all of us that we've unfortunately been boxed in.
Right.
Because there are parts of us that we aren't consciously aware of that comes across that way. And now, with that said, there is very much toxic femininity as well out here. You understand? There are. Don't get it twisted, bro. I know some savages out here.
Man,
man.
you and I both.
Who identify as women. You know what I mean? I think that's how you that's the politically
right.
That's right. You've been doing some research.
I don't want to say girls, women, lady.
Right,
I don't know what the right word is.
We had that conversation too, man.
I'm telling you that so that's me. That's who I trust. I trust me because I know because of the way my parents taught me and because of just my personal decision, I'm one of those people that's going to always have an internal monologue before I do anything. Even if it's a slight split second, I'm going to, because most of the time when I walk into a place, I check everything out. I scope everything out. Like people sometimes, if I go into their crib, it'll take me a minute maybe to sit down or take my coat off just because that's just me in general. Because of my neighborhood I grew up in.
I was about to say, that's hood rules.
Yeah. I hung out,
Stay on point.
Times when I used to sneak over to Lincoln Heights and Clay Terrace and, without my mom, knowing. Man, sometimes, boy, I would end up in some scenarios, man, and some situations, niggas chopping things up and cutting things up and whatever. And you gotta have a plan.
At the very least, know where the exits are.
Right. Or a plan. You just gotta have a plan. You know what I'm saying? The first law of nature is self-preservation. Period. And some people have a better job of masking or hiding that versus the other ones out here who are the wolves in our society who rule our society.
Right.
They savages. They going.
Yeah. Right. And Jay, that first of all, that was a brilliant way you set up the question.
Oh, really?
And it also segued right into something that I want to ask. I know we don't have that much time, but
that was very beautiful, man. It's always beautiful that when what do they call it? Cis men? Is that what we are now?
Oh, really? That's what the fuck we are now?
So when cisgender men compliment each other, that's a beautiful thing. I'm just telling you, it doesn't happen a lot.
Definitely,
And
we're trying to break that narrative.
And that lack of interaction between just heterosexual or cisgender men, the lack of that is what ultimately contributes to our toxic masculinity.
The breakdown of what masculinity is supposed to be.
Because we got, we got too hard, man.
You gotta be able to throw a compliment every now and again.
Man, we were somewhere last week, and this catering company made these fried lobster tails for us, man, backstage, and the joint was this huge, man, right? So I'm damn near size bigger than a football, right? Looked beautiful. Some parts of it taste good, but it was hard as I don't know what to eat.
Right.
Because it had, I guess it was an older one, and it had sat and held on to whatever so long.
Right. Yeah.
Man, shit. We can't be that way as people.
Right. Yeah. I was wondering.
The lobster
nice to
analogy.
bring it back. But,
that's right.
But yeah, I just wanted to, and I'm glad you mentioned the land ruled by sheep, because I was going to talk about. He talked about the name of the songs, and I noticed I wanted to ask you about the process you go through for naming your projects and your songs. Because I noticed you have some like the Kings in the Wilderness.
Kings of the Wilderness.
Yeah. And so, was that from the
Kings
MLK
of the
thing?
Well, no, actually, it Kings in the Wilderness was a direct response to. I wanted to make first of all, the guy who produced that whole project with me. I did a whole project with him. And his name was The Product, and he's from.
Keep your eye on the product.
Keep your eye on the product. He's from VA.
Yeah, dope.
So that was a cross-generational thing, consciously. And then on that record, I have cross-generational guest artists.
Right.
And one of them that I featured on is actually a brother who's slightly on the spectrum, named why am I drawing a blank? Don't kill me. Anyway, it'll come back to me. I have so much on my mind. But I had him on there. I mean, he was killer, but he was also one of my students in a summer program. So during that summer, I incorporated. So the visuals I shot for that, they were shot by teenagers and kids and youth from the area. But Kings in the Wilderness, dude, that record is so crazy because that record is like basically a lash out from like an ex-girlfriend who's harassing me on social media.
Oh, wow.
Like because I haven't.
Now I gotta listen because I
wasn't engaging her.
I gotta listen again.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I like so the joint is like, let me think. Catch me on my fly guy. Backwoods rolled around some Mai Tai. On a beach in Punta Cana sipping Mai Tais. Haters on IG catching splinters in their eyes. Hate Texas stretch from Silver Spring to Texas. Mansions, high rises, housing complexes. The harder the conquest gets, the harder the test gets. Shit, a broken heart will leave you breathless. I swear, niggas, guard it, protect it, or you will be that next hit left overnight on the press kit.
I just listened to that.
Switch the exit. Yeah. Brothers jumping that shit. Jumping ship just to be. Shout out to my brother Dirty Rico and Red Essence. This is for the kings, the lords, and the peasants. The preacher's daughters who gave me those blessings. Blessed with holy water with slits in their dresses. I seen it in their eyes. I seen it in their thighs. Hunting, wondering for a piece of humble pie. Well, I'm the pie man. I'ma give them a try. Final call shit minus the suit and bow tie. Come from a place where they say nothing come from. Where niggas settle for the dope or the drug runs. Not to come across like Big Pun. I'm talking about the era of Rayful, Ho Gates, and rum buns. In the midst of the crooked politicians and guns, there was a rose in the concrete, a native son, plotting on revolution, how he gonna get it done. Art hurts hosts, and art hurts some, on a mission to find the real one with real tits and maybe some real buns, with some real passion and maybe some real fun, with some real talent and know how to roll a blunt. They all claim to love you, and they love to claim you individual. Same old shit. Only physical, only driven by material, but beauty is fleeting. Watch yourself, mystical. I knew I made it when my haters took flicks with you. It's so pitiful. Misery loves company, but pussies love the pitiful. So I'd rather tap out before I act out and call my goons, and we bring them straps out like art hurts.
Art hurts. Man, that's one of them joints. Yeah. So, the naming of the projects, like you had you mentioned the land ruled by wolves, and that's one of the names.
Land of sheep ran by pigs, ruled by wolves.
And that was from a quote, right? Just basically talking about society and how it is. Well, America, right? That was supposed to be what America was about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's just dope. I know we about to wrap up. I want to ask. I always ask this question to all of my guests, and I want to get your answer for it. It's always introspective. If you had an opportunity to talk to a young Wes Felton. Oh, I didn't get to ask you about the name because I know when you first came out, you W. Ellington Felton.
Well, W. Ellington Felton is my actual born name.
Right. And so,
and then years later, I did this licensing deal for a couple of compilations of my records.
Okay.
And the particular company that I had worked with, they didn't necessarily know what they were doing in terms of the level in which I thought. When I did the deal with them. Yeah. So because I didn't feel that they knew how to work the projects or understood the people involved, I just was like, nah, I'm gonna fall back. I'm not gonna necessarily cooperate with you. You know, they wanted me to buy my CDs and then sell them. And it's just things like that. And it was that real old school slavery. The reason why I never signed record deal type of shit, right?
Yeah.
But so then there was instances where they would often threaten, well, you can't put those songs out on this particular record project.
Okay, so it was one of those.
Or you can't
type
perform
situations.
that, whatever,
okay.
Right? For X amount of years. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what they say on my Wikipedia, I got 34 listed projects, right?
Exactly.
So I thought, them 12, 13 songs, you can have those. You can have those for the next few years. And in fact, I'm going to let y'all even have my name, and you still not going to have the sense to exploit it, in a sense.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to even give you a chance to exploit it. Yeah. Because I know if you push them records, it's not like y'all can clone me or find somebody to come up here and do the joint.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So I'm still the cake, the batter, and the mix up in there, right?
Yeah.
So I did that, and then a friend of mine named Jason Orr, who's a very prominent pioneer who used to have an event in Atlanta called Funk Jazz Cafe, and he's now very successful movie and documentary producer as well. He's the one that was said, that's what you need to do anyway. Wes Felton. He said, like Mos Def or whatever. He said, because black people, first of all, W. Ellington Felton, the only people who call you that are white people.
Right.
I'm serious. White people and little children are the only people who call me W.
I used to always think that's a long ass name.
I just used to think it's mysterious. It sounds like something.
That joint didn't become cool until I went to Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
But growing up, it was like, even on Teen Summer, they was like, you got to be something else. You got to be West.
You need to change that term.
First meeting, they was like, we not putting that up there. We're not gonna put that up.
On the character generator,
right. They're like, that's too long. You gotta pick something, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened with the whole Wes Felton.
But so the original question: if you had the opportunity to talk to a younger version of yourself, let's say a 12-year-old Wes Felton, knowing everything you know, being through everything you've been through, and seeing all you see with the knowledge you have now, what would that conversation be like?
I would have tried to talk my parents into. I would have told myself to talk my parents into letting me on spring breaks or any opportunities to go to California or New York and audition for things. I would press them to I would tell myself to become a vegetarian at that point, so then I could get my parents on that plan, so they would have longer lives. My father, I feel like my father's life could have been extended if there was a way I could have, at an earlier age, gotten a hand on maybe how he ate or his certain lifestyle choices. And I've also told myself to wait until I was rich to care a lot about a woman, an individual woman.
We need
Right?
a whole nother show.
Man,
was
we
that
need you
single.
to come back.
I would
Yeah,
say,
we need
I would
another
say,
show.
look here, nigga.
Right.
stay single, strap up, stay single, and like don't get a girlfriend until you're like wealthy.
Right.
Like
Everything's
period.
so much easier.
Because bruh, like the journey you're gonna take is one that's less traveled, and it's gonna be judged. It's not gonna be heavily supported.
Right.
But that's just like, for me, I feel like that's the service of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's not a struggle. That's not. It's not. I'm not struggling.
Right.
It's more of like, I know that every follower I have, I earned them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't generated through some outside resources or some marketing thing,
Some
or
bot or
some
something,
robot or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I know that every stream I get, I earn it. Like somebody acts, it's because somebody wants to hear it, or my music or my art form. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. You definitely did. Man,
but yeah, man, what's the matter? You had your heart broke recently, man?
Well,
oh man.
well, I mean, to be honest,
Well,
like, yes,
yeah,
I have.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like, to keep it 100. But I mean, well, I guess the interesting thing is that it seems to be a
pattern.
A pattern.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me tell you
Yeah.
for the last 2 years, guys, I've been for the first time mentally, emotionally, and physically single. Okay. So what that means is I have not. If I have interacted with a woman in the last 10 years, last 2 years, it has been strictly mutual encounters, or mutual understanding. Not very frequent, because we assume that the baggage that we bring in to relationships is always the baggage from the previous relationship. That's just part of it. That's just the little case that's in your, that you keep your deodorant.
Yeah.
The deodorant. Not even that big. That's just that, right?
Okay.
It's all that other shit, the trauma from your childhood. It's all the whatever. Until you really are able to either toss that stuff out or find a storage bin to have that stuff collect dust, and that's only if some of it is valuable. You don't need to be bunned up, occupying someone's emotions, nor do you need to be sharing yourself with them, because what's going to happen is it's going to seep out regardless. And when it seeps out, a lot of times you're not aware of it. And so it comes across as offensive. And you take it personal.
Man. So we're going to
let me
go
tell
much
y'all
longer
this.
than we're not wrapping this up yet. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let me just tell you this.
We're not gonna wrap this up.
What I learned a long time ago, I had a friend of mine. I remember back in the day, I dated this chick. Oh man, I was crying, man. When she broke up with me, man. And I was young.
I think we've all been there.
I was a spry, and I was 20. And this was like my first broken heart, really, as a grown man, but I was still young, 20 something, right? And I remember going out to dinner with my family, and my father being like, "Nigga, what's you crying for?" Being like, "What's up?" He took that cliche, like, "Look, man, come on, man, you know what I mean? Man, I seen your girlfriends, man. You do all right. You know what I'm saying? He really trying to, give me. He tried every angle, right?
Yeah.
But I had a really close friend whose father, who is actually a psychologist, who, that's what he did for a career. And I remember him seeing me and was like, it was after my son, and this was like years later than when I had a kid, and my son's mother and I decided we weren't going to be like a couple, right? We made a kid, but we decided we were just going to probably be better as co-parents, right? I was so crushed because it wasn't necessarily the relationship part of it that I was crushed about. It wasn't that rejection. It was the fear of the separation of my son.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Jay.
And this teacher, this guy's my friend Tito, his father, Levert Mathis, Dr. Levert Mathis. He said to me, he said, Wes, no one was put on this earth for anybody, but you were put on this earth for everybody. When a person chooses to share their time with you, you have to learn to respect and always look at that time as borrowed time.
Yeah.
Because you could marry somebody and they're going to pass away. We see it happen all the time. Somebody gets married, and then 2 months later, 3 weeks later, the partner of that person dies from heartache or heart. You understand?
Yeah.
So what I've learned is that instead of looking at breakups like a breakup, I look at them as breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we might be standing in the way of someone else's growth, and that's a hard thing for us. You know, a lot of times when I tap out of relationships, the times that I have, they've hurt the other person, but it's because I could admit that there's nothing else I can do for you right now.
Yeah.
And there's
but hurt you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it seems like, you know, I've tried to communicate it this way, or I've tried to communicate that way, and it seems like those words, it's still, you react to them as if it was harmful. And so I don't want to be one of them people. I definitely don't want to be a nigga where women are walking around here, you know, claiming that I'm like, you know, hyper aggressive or anything. You know, any of that stuff. You just kind of, I've just learned that, again, people are not put on. It's borrowed time. A person, and what I've learned how to say to people is like, thank you, thank you for sharing yourself. Thank you for sharing your time. I appreciate that, because I know that you took time out of your life, your journey, your destiny to let me distract you.
But don't you think people like focus on that time in the wrong way? Like you said, like the words you spoke are of an evolved person. Like a lot of people, like the emotional maturity that it takes to get to the point that to understand that the dissolution of a relationship is not a negative thing. We're here to match until we find that match. So
that's why I wanted to double down on when I was like I've been heartbroken recently. No, I haven't been heartbroken. I don't think that was the correct assessment. I think the past couple years, probably like the past 10 years, I've come to a realization that a certain relationship isn't right. So it's like when my heart was broken, it was like I was disappointed. It's like I thought this could have turned into something, but very much to your point, like what you were saying, it's a little bit different, because the sisters in particular that I'm talking about, I'm a little older than. You know what I'm saying? And so you were also speaking about when I asked the Tupac joint, who do you believe in? Basically yourself. And I know I've put in the time, I've put in the work and looked myself in the mirror and done the hard work on myself, right?
But let me ask you this. Yeah. Have you ever gone 2 years? You know how you hear those sisters be like, I'm dating myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself. Right?
Well, they say that, but they got a nigga.
Yeah, right.
Look, what did I just say? But what did I just say?
Yeah, it's 2 years. Emotionally,
I said I was single, but
you still had interactions.
You know,
I heard.
I might have had.
But no, I mean, I don't know. I want to hear where you're going with this. Finish,
finish, nigga. My point is, sometimes you have to find comfort with yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean seriously though.
No, I'm talking serious.
You know what I'm
I'm ready for whatever you talk about.
For a good while.
Yeah.
I ain't talking about for, a couple months or in between a relationship, but I mean I'm talking about literally where there's none of that back and forth. You're no longer where you're literally not engaging people from your past.
That's me, bro. I'm trying to tell you, like in a real way, like the real work.
Well, then you might be the problem, brother. You the common denominator.
But you ain't let me finish.
Okay,
so what I'm saying is, I come to that point. It's like, oh, I am engulfed in my healing and in my, I guess, process of reaching
maturation,
my highest potential, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like I know I shouldn't be involved with somebody, but when, like you're saying, when you're articulating that, it comes across as like a negative, or someone would get defensive. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
It's like,
rejection
like,
feels the same regardless, no matter how
but
good
is it
your
rejection.
Yeah.
Not, but
Listen,
for them
man,
it is.
they'll
It
make
is.
you. Yeah, man. As much as we hear about how dudes be like lunching out, like this is my theory on that. My theory is that I'm sensitive towards people like that, who have those difficulties, because there's some people that will go their whole life and never really experience like unconditional love, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know.
So imagine you a dude, right? It took you 40-something years to finally meet a woman who might be slightly attractive and like she gives you attention and time.
What? That exists?
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Stop.
Yeah,
This isn't a dream show.
But then say it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
What people think is that dude is just triggering because he, that's just what niggas do. No. That person is internalizing that, damn, am I going to have to wait another 40 years to feel this again?
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
So some women, will be in situations where, hey man, it's their way or the highway.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that for yourself that, hey brother, the highway got exit ramps, they got all kinds of shit. Man.
Rest stops.
The shoulder, you can get on the shoulder.
But the advice that I would give to you, my brother, is when the next young lady who you feel that you want to take to the next level, or whatever that means to you, or be serious about, you and that young lady need to communicate your expectations of each other ASAP. Okay?
Well, yeah,
There's a
I
lot
agree.
of women out here and a lot of men out here who will, in the early stages of meeting somebody, they'll act like they're cool with certain behavior or cool with certain and then before you realize it, you'll realize that, well, I might got low self expectations, but my expectations of other people might be super high. Okay? And there's some women that can say, yeah, I'm cool. We can just get down or we can just kick it. And they're lying.
Right. Yeah.
You need to learn how to, when a woman says the perfect thing, the same way women don't believe when a nigga say the perfect thing, sometimes you got to be like, well, let me think about this. That sound kind of sweet. I ain't,
good to
you know
be
what I'm
true,
saying? But you got to think like, okay, what's the
motive?
That might be a little too good to be true, because I don't know too many women that are traditional kind of women,
right,
who are cool with just getting down with each other sometimes. Now the flip side of that, by being mentally, emotionally, and physically single, I've learned that there are
You can
a
anything
lot
you're looking for, you can find.
of women who are professional. And when I say professional, I don't mean the oldest profession in the industry.
Right.
Okay, I'm talking about like
Professional.
women that got careers,
Right.
that work, and like sometimes they checking for you, and they sincerely are able to detach and reattach.
Right.
Detach and reattach. And me personally, I've learned that I kind of like that lifestyle for right now, because it doesn't put me in a position where I ever feel like I have to
you
choose
don't,
between
Wes.
listen,
You want to be in love, man.
No. I'm gonna tell you this is what I've
You
learned.
do.
No, I don't want to be in love with a person if she is ever gonna always make me choose between my art and her or my son and her. And we live in a culture now where we're taught to believe that when a person abandons everything else for somebody else, that's love.
Yeah.
That ain't love, nigga. That's submission. And that's like that's giving you
prison.
the only thing we don't have to buy that we're born with, our free will.
Yeah, he said it. Yeah.
I'm not giving you my free will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be asked to, because love is freedom. It's not
Exactly.
confinement, right?
Brother, I got so many homeboys who come to me for counseling and confinement and things of that nature. And one consistent thing that lately has been happening is that they've been having their ladies. Let's say they're in a new relationship with a lady, and he has a previous child with someone else, where the women almost make them it's always, say if something's going on with the child, and they have to go tend to that child.
Yeah.
Because they're a father that's involved, the woman will react, and rather than focusing on the child, they only relate that child to the vessel that it came out of.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
But you can't put that 100% on them, because there are people who play that role, who, it's about
man,
the child,
you got two choices. Listen,
right?
you got a choice. You can either have somebody out of your life, or you can hate somebody. You can't do both at the same time.
You can't have it both ways. I say it all the time. That's right.
Because it ain't about them. Then it's no longer becomes about that person.
Exactly.
If a person ain't in your life and they not in your circle and they ain't your friend, you should be at peace.
You should.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if they not purposefully, consistently, and consciously bothering.
Making the effort.
But if you are separated from somebody and not around them, and at the same time getting engagement and attention from other outsourcers, and you still mad at that other person,
it's a problem.
or you still holding something, that speaks about that person.
Yep.
And it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that you no longer. And what my point is that sometimes we've been conditioned and programmed to believe that relationships always fail because of the man. That's not true. Or relationships fail because women are greedy. That's not true. Relationships fail because men are secretly gay. That's not true. Maybe you understand what I'm saying?
All these narratives.
These are all these narratives that basically
It's always negative.
people who don't
Just
have
sounded like a Tyler Perry movie.
yeah, exactly. Right. People don't have but that's the irony of Tyler Perry. People wonder why he's so successful.
Oh, I know.
And why and look at the hilarity and absurdity of his work. It's because we know niggas like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I know niggas.
Yeah.
You understand? I've had a cousin make a pass on me. I remember being a young
crazy.
boy and one of my girl cousins trying to basically holler at me.
Yeah.
You know, as an adult, in hindsight, you think
Right,
about
wait a
those
minute,
things.
what? Yeah.
But because we in certain cultures we're taught these are just
Bury
things.
it, yeah.
These are just social constructs and narratives that we're told that you have to be. And I'm saying to you, brother, if you do believe that you are at a point where you are a whole man,
Yep.
and you bring a whole you to the table, if it ain't working out with a chick, that means that the whole her is not there yet.
Well, that's
you have
my
to
point.
trust that.
But see, that's what I believe, right? But it's hard to relay that to the person because that
Well,
doesn't
you
come
can't
across.
worry about
You
that.
got to stop caring what people.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I learned that.
Yeah.
True, but in the last scenario, I do care about this person. So you know what I'm saying? So
So
it's
it
not.
makes it hard not to care about what they
Yeah, so it's like, but like it's compartmentalizing it though. Like, because the past relationship that I'm talking about wasn't intended. We were just cool, and it just kind of turned into something. I was like, this is cool. So it's like it wasn't like, we're going to go into this. Like I think your point was like you got to put everything on the table, and like your expectations and all that.
Yeah.
Because we
Upfront,
were
yeah.
just cool.
Yeah, you got
None
to.
of that came
I've
up.
had so many.
So we just kind of fell in it. It was like, you know what
Because
I'm
this is
saying?
the thing. The reason why you have to be careful, and this is, and you know this if you listen to my music, is that you have to be careful because we weren't put on this earth for nobody. You have to be careful who you pick and choose to share your self with. So see, some people think, people used to think that I was standoffish or I had an ego or something because I wasn't I didn't greet everybody all the time. It wasn't always.
Yeah.
I just personally believe like, hey, if you don't really have a true desire and intention to overextend a welcome to somebody, then don't do it. It's not
Right,
genuine. It's
yeah.
not sincere.
Right.
Yeah.
But also the reason why that is because when you share yourself, you're opening yourself up. Basically, like you're performing surgery on yourself. Okay? And when you take that stuff out and you begin to give it to people, you're then going to be left there with not only having to replace those parts of you that you're given or retrieve them and then stitch yourself back up. Because I will say 8 out of 10 of the relationships that I've ever been in, and I'm saying that I ain't never been in 10 relationships, but I'm just using that as a number, for example, just so you can get a sense of percentage. The person who I was formerly in a relationship with, 8 out of 10 of the times, they took the things that I shared with them as personal or intimate or important to me as things of bonding and building and to identify my trust for them. And then they just completely, if things didn't work out, they completely taken those very exact things and then use those as the very weapons to attempts to hurt you. Yeah. And that's why we have to be very careful. I don't blame them. That's just the art of war, nigga. You gonna give me bombs?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. You gonna give me bombs?
I'm the king of bombs. I tell people all the people be like, "Yo, Dub, you should run for office." I be like, "Y'all don't want me in no office." I'm not. I will be straight up biased. I will be very clear on who I fuck with and who I don't.
Oh, that's like Trump.
Hello. Hello. But I'm just saying, I would be very clear with that.
But yeah, I've heard I heard someone say the definition of love is well, everybody has their own thing, but just to what you were saying, it's giving somebody all the tools to destroy you and then expecting them not to. Because in those emotional situations, good. But I mean, because you want that that's the idea, is to have somebody that you're close enough with to have that level of vulnerability.
We open.
Where are we? Oh yeah, we're in this beautiful store here,
the
guys.
Nubian Human.
Support black businesses over here.
Definitely,
They got me over here in the South Side.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's much love and respect if they got me come. I live completely on the complete opposite side of the city. I live by the National Cathedral. So
okay, that's what
you way uptown.
Yes,
way uptown.
Right.
We're moving on up.
Right.
No. Right. No, I you know what? I lived there. I moved up that way just to be convenient for my son, for him to have a closer residency to come to because of the particular school that he was going to at that time.
It's on Connecticut Avenue, isn't it?
Wisconsin, and I stayed up there because it's just.
The white women?
No, I'm sorry. Well, first of all,
truth comes out.
First of all, I'm gonna be honest with you. White women they're not attracted to me, man. White women don't try to holler at me. They avoid me, man. I can ride the whole 33 bus and it be packed and won't nobody sit next to me. You understand? So, and up there, the white people up there are different kind of white people. They're more kind of generational wealth and. They really just they coming and going, but I live up there because I really enjoy the fact that when the day ends, it ends up there. It ain't like you got to go down closer towards Georgetown or you got to go towards Adams Morgan or somewhere to for people to be up.
Okay, so it's small town like they shut it down.
It's quiet. It's that's very nice, and I like that. I like walking outside and seeing trees and. I like walking outside and not having certain elements. I grew up in a very traumatic neighborhood. My home was safe, but my neighborhood was traumatic, man. It was something that was tough, and my mom always sent me to school to Northwest, to other schools, but I would always have to return back to my neighborhood, and I was seeing very clear distinctions between communities. I was exposed to that at a very early age, but also cats in my neighborhood. I know cats in my neighborhood who've never been past Minnesota Avenue.
Yeah.
I didn't really leave Southeast till I was about 19.
Yeah, you understand? I understand it.
Don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I don't give up on love though, man. Don't give up on that.
Not at all.
Thanks, Wes. Encouraging words from Wes.
Yes. But yeah,
I say it to you all the time. Now, Wes coming his now. I'm just playing.
Palo Santo. But yeah, see, y'all see, man. That's what I'm saying, man. Be careful though, man, because he don't like the get emotional with the.
Nah, I do.
Yeah,
I tell
He-
Dave I
he
love him
opens
all
up
the time.
More. He opens up more.
I know.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah. Right. Wes say I know.
Y'all don't be out here like Boozy, man.
Right. Oh man, this dude, right? It's some other stuff going on. Who do you like now? Who do you listen to like musically?
Oh, nobody. Let's hear it.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. There's anybody out right now?
Currently, me personally, I'm gonna break it down in different categories. So people who are getting the artists that I like right now who are getting a lot of love per se. I like Griselda. I like them.
Oh yeah, I feel that
Okay.
too.
Okay.
I like them. I like them because although I'm kind of a different kind of person, I'm an artist because of the environment that I grew up in, because of the neighborhood I grew up in. Man, I like my favorite rap group ever is the Clips. Like,
Okay.
and some people will never like that or understand.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The reason why I like the Clips because I feel like they showed how you could take drug rap and turn it into poetry.
Yeah.
Because if you really break down their lyrics, definitely Pusha when they're together, Pusha and Malice, who's no Malice now.
Yeah.
When they would be together, each one of their lines would have like double entendres in it.
Yeah.
If you go and look at their lyrics,
Read it
you're
back,
like,
yeah.
you know, it ain't like they just saying I sold crack. Crack ain't whack. You
Right,
get my
right.
money
Get up
back.
off my
No.
back, right? It was deep, yeah.
Like that band was, what's the one line when he say, you know, on the song that's the biggest debater whether it's a whack song or not song, grinding.
Oh, okay.
What? Isn't that a hip hop classic?
But that's
Yeah,
a big,
yeah.
but no, but there's a big debate that song isn't as big of a deal as it is, and that
No, it is.
that it's
Lyrically,
not that
yeah,
dope.
Because
right?
the beat and the lyrics,
That's the
because you
people
got to
that
have
don't
lyrics
listen
for
Oh,
that beat.
dude,
Yeah,
when that Bama said, but when he says, you know, from ghetto to ghetto to backyard to yard, that's basically covering two grounds just off the break. He's letting you know off the break, nigga,
Yeah.
from the city to the suburb.
Right. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Push
Pushing
that.
got
I'm
some-
off the hard.
Yeah.
Cause I push. What he say? Call me. Call me. Oh man. Call me something push because I push bass like that. Like, but in the line where it's talking about the bass, because I push bass. The double entendre in that line is like playing off of the bass, the sound, and you talking about the free bass. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like Griselda because I like when cats can formulate, one, when they can actually rhyme in their raps, and two, when they can actually formulate sentences and complete thoughts and fit it into the beat structure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm into that. See, like, me as a rapper, I've always considered myself, when I approach writing raps, I approach them like a saxophone solo. So I think about if somebody's playing a sax. So rather than me committing to the same cadence for an entire verse, I've always thought that I just try to fill the middle of whatever.
Improv. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fill the empty spaces.
You know,
yeah.
so I might rap one way and then in the middle of it change the cadence a little bit, and just things like that. So I like Griselda because their voices are cool, and I'm into that. I like Rocky Marcy. I like street rap.
Okay.
I just don't like fake street rap.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like the
commercial.
dudes. I don't like these dudes that's faking it, and you know,
You can
they
tell,
real
yeah.
suspect. They show they butt off. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I ain't really.
Yeah,
I ain't. That's
yeah.
just not me because the environment I grew up in. I tell people all the time I'm a mild hip hop conservative
Right.
because I still, although I'm an artist and I'm open minded, you know, and I respect all types of people. It don't necessarily mean I get down with all types of people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hip hop, like I said, I'm a hip hop purist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a hip hop conservative.
Conservative,
I'm
okay.
a-
He said, nah, good. Keep it conservative. Yeah, I hear you.
whatever definition y'all want to, how you want to define that.
Right,
So that's what I
right.
like right now in that pop in terms of somebody who's buzzing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I like the young boy from this area, YBN Corday.
Yeah, I like
him.
Corday
Okay.
too.
He gives me hope.
Yeah.
Nice.
Same here.
And you know, people that are more immediately like in my camp, you know, like Raheem. I like the work that we do right now. I like where Raheem is.
Salute to
in
Raheem
profession.
Devon.
You know what I'm saying? I like that he's I think it's starting to really lock in for him where he's able to you know, in this industry people don't understand that it's very hard to like stay relevant.
Yeah.
Over and over and be able to be able to make comebacks and it not be called a comeback.
Right.
But it's just a new project.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, he and I have been blessed and fortunate enough to create content and music for over almost 25 years together that we weren't caught up in whatever the trend was at that time. So it's been able to sustain. But then also we tried to create art that's us. So no matter what age we get, we will be able to perform it. See, black people, we the only people who kill our artists off.
Yeah.
They'll let Ozzy Osbourne and all these other ones, they'll get up there and wheel them up there or whatever.
Yeah.
Barely can talk, barely can sing. Look at Elton John. Elton John's at the point where dementia is starting to set in on him and vertigo while he's, you know, where he had to end the show a couple weeks ago, you know.
Wow.
But they will, and they call their shit classic. But what do they call us? Old school.
Washed up.
Old school.
Old school. Yeah.
Ooh, don't nobody want nothing that sound with the word old at the beginning of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't know old people want to be called old.
Right. You don't.
They want you to call them mature or they older. You know
middle aged. You know, advanced.
So it's that. So you know, it's those dynamics, man.
Yeah,
but I thank you guys for having me on here, man. You know,
definitely.
We done wrapped everybody up.
Yeah,
man.
Hey,
but
sometimes it happens.
But I just need, you know, I thank you guys for having me because I need it. Because people were like wondering, like, you know, if I was gonna show up, I was gonna make it, you know, especially in the height of the news with my brother.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much.
I needed to kind of get some of the things that I shared off my chest, like I said before, because it's just, you know, we there's a lot of work that's still involved in this next few weeks and year, and you know, the rest of my life is going to be, you know, functioning and knowing that I don't have the option of my blood brother.
Right.
You know, fortunately in life, God blesses us with other people who are able to step in at certain times in your life to fill that void. And I've been blessed with quite a few strong black men throughout my life who are still in my life and continue to hold me up and hold me down sometimes when I'm necessary. So
definitely, man. We definitely appreciate you.
Wes,
you know, coming through and go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we should do a song.
Oh, I'm down. I record all the time. I record out my crib. All my
but
last.
You know, it's not as easy as you making this shit seem.
Am I too far? Is it too far for you to come up there where I am?
No,
if I can come all the way over here.
No. I'm just saying, it's live.
We making records up there.
Where you at?
I like the cathedral. It's a nice environment up there.
Man,
I like that.
We can go over to the Bishop's Garden and smoke a J before we.
Yeah, I'm with it. So it's live. So you can't like when I text you. You know, it's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I could just rewind some shit like
exactly. You got it.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
No, you good,
I just recorded this song with Kenilworth Katrina yesterday.
Oh, that's the homie.
Man.
That's the homie.
And
I'm so psyched,
bruh. Like,
yeah,
I'm so psyched. I'm a fan of hers.
Oh, so am I.
Yeah, we all are.
We definitely fans.
So I was glad, like, you know, even with her, I was like, you know, she was like, you sure you don't want to cancel? I was like, nah, I'm coming. I was like, that's, you know, that's, you know. The only person that knows that somebody's dead are the people that's left behind. Mm-hmm. The person that's dead don't know they did.
Yeah,
they did.
Man, they not. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And you know, the reality of it is that we can't use death as an excuse to stop living.
Exactly.
That's another. You know, that's only some cultures look at death that way. You understand?
Right.
Because other cultures look at death as a transition.
Exactly.
And there's other things. So we, you know, so we good, man. You know, I got my whole life to cry. And do all that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I thank you guys again for letting me be up on here.
Thank you so much for coming through and just everything that you know felt free to express and get off your chest in these moments, man. We appreciate you tremendously. It's somebody that's looking at this or that's going to look at this that needs to see and hear something that you said and did today. And, man, we appreciate you immensely. I can't say enough, man. Thank you so much for coming through and being a part of the Neighborish live cast here at Nubian Human in the Anacostia Arts Center.
Hey.
On behalf of my brother Jay's son,
Hey,
on
hey.
behalf of Wes Felton, man, thank you guys so much for checking this out.
Yes.
This has been another Neighborish live cast, and we're going to get out of here because, we held y'all for a long time.
Hey, it was a long
but
show
it was,
today.
But it was,
people can watch this later. It'll be
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
post it on YouTube
Although
today,
it's this long?
evening. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And and I'll chop up pieces too and put it through. But
Oh, nice.
But I'll
Okay.
put the whole thing up. That's
Great,
how
man.
you do YouTube and SoundCloud. So yeah,
Okay,
you'll
great.
be able to check it out. I'll send you the links.
Dope.
Thank you, sir, man.
Thanks, y'all.
100%.
Peace.
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 I feel bad.